Good afternoon, everyone. Today is Tuesday, August 1st. Welcome to August 2023. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the St. Croix County Supervisors, or Board of Supervisors. And we'll start off with our invocation from Tim Sackett.
Thank you very much. Yeah, please rise. I don't get to say that very often anymore. I'm glad to be back again, and I've asked Vice Chair Fiedler to stop counting the number of times I've been here. It's almost embarrassing. When any of us from the clergy come here, one of our goals in being here is to bring some encouragement and not advice. And one of the things that has been rolling around with me when it comes to encouragement, it wasn't that long ago, I was kind of fascinated with this team of apostles named Paul and Barnabas. And in Acts chapter 11, they're together and they're sent together on the mission field. And I thought the difference between the two, Paul could give you encouragement, but he would also show you all of his knowledge, give you all of his analogies, pull out your background and his, and do some comparison, and then get out some scriptures and give you the scripture reference. And Paul was a great guy, but he would gently kick in your door. Barnabas was totally different. His name, it says in scripture, was the son of encouragement. And there's two kinds of encouragement when I think about it. You can be an encourager by being in a stadium and cheering on the team, and it's loud and it's rowdy, but it's encouraging. Barnabas would be the kind of person who, if you're really going through a lot of struggles, he would just look at you and say, let's go outside and enjoy the day and sit down and you can tell me all about it. That's when you think of Barnabas, think of Barnabas. And both of them had equal authority and the knowledge, the wisdom. They just brought the life of Christ alive in them to others. Very fascinating men, but very different approaches. But both of them, they loved God, they loved people, and I just want to encourage you with that today, that I'd rather be a Barnabas and come in here and just say, let's all just go outside and sit and enjoy the day, and you can tell me all about it. All right, let's pray. Father in heaven, we thank you for the lessons that are written down from ages and ages ago about what it means to be one of your disciples, to be one of your ambassadors, to be someone who carries with them encouragement and wisdom and the ability to be patient and listen, and then always to respond with compassion and wisdom. I pray that this group today will be patient in listening, a very large crowd here today. So it's important to be patient and to listen, but it's also important to just be an encourager and to be aware of people's needs. And I know that in governing this county, that's what this board will do most often, is to hear what the people need. And the difficulty they have is trying to make things happen for people, give them opportunities, and to share ideas that will work, and to hopefully not bend or compromise things that would be harmful to our county, to our society. So we pray for them as they do the difficult work of governing and deciding, and all the work that goes into this position that they have. I pray that they would be encouraged and that your wisdom would come through in all that is happening here today. In Jesus' name, amen. Flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we're ready for roll call. Let's change it to 2 minutes. We got a lot of people.
Let the record show Sean is not a roll call.
Kirk. Yeah, there you go.
Mark? Mike? Wrong device.
Did hear from Bob.
There we go.
Okay, we're ready for public comment. We have a lot, which is good. I think it's a wonderful thing that citizens are interested enough to come and comment things on our agenda. We do have a lot of people that would like to comment, so I've changed the clock to 2 minutes. And there is a little light on the podium that will begin flashing, so please be cognizant of the time. And also I ask for your consideration in keeping your comments very short and concise to give everyone else that wants to make comments the opportunity to do so. I really don't want to limit the total amount of time for public comment, but I may have to, depending upon the time. We have a big agenda tonight, so we need to make sure we get through it. So let's start with David McDonald, and then Dave Peterson will be after him.
Good evening. I'm here to read a letter of support, a letter from Dave and Barb Croix. Dear St. Croix County Board Member, we're sending you this letter regarding the rezoning of property belonging to Brian and Patty Lawrence from Kinney River Farms. We were planning to speak at the August 1st meeting. However, our work obligations will not allow us to attend. We'd like to let you, the board members, and the Lawrence's neighbors know we support them in the rezoning application of R2 to Ag 2. My wife and I have lived in St. Croix County for 37 years. We've known Brian and Patty Lawrence for 24 years and lived next door to them for 15. They're good people and great neighbors. We understand there have been personal attacks against them. This is a misrepresentation of who they are, and we want all to know the Lawrences have integrity and care for their neighbors and community. They are the kind of people who help each other out, volunteer at schools and youth events, and keep their property very well maintained. It is our understanding their 24-acre property in Kinnickinnick Township meets all the guidelines for Ag 2, aligns with the township and county comprehensive plans, meets the agriculture preservation goals, and has been recommended for approval by the St. Croix Community Development Department. Furthermore, we believe the kind of activities they have planned for kids and families, along with the wine tasting, will only add to the popularity and be an enhancement of the Kinnickinnick Valley. We're asking you for your support to approve the rezoning request from R2 to Ag 2 on August 1st. Thank you.
Thank you. Dave Peterson, and Tim Sackett will be after him.
My name is Dave Peterson. I live at 1299 County Road J. I'm here to ask you to support the Community Development Committee recommendation to deny the zoning change request for 24 acres at 331 County Road Double J from R2 to Ag 2 agricultural. This change would allow up to 15 wedding venues with associated loud music and alcohol consumption a year. This amounts to every weekend during the summer. 35 nearby neighbors submitted a petition urging the Community Development Committee to deny the request. The zoning planner is of the opinion the request technically does not result in spot zoning, a loosely defined term. The facts are 80% of Kinnickinnick is zoned R2. The area around 331 County Road JJ is the most densely populated area in Kinnickinnick. I say, if it quacks like a duck, it is a duck. please vote to deny the zoning change. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Tim, you're back up, followed by Alan Klein.
Thank you. My comments are in kind of in timing with the legalization of recreational marijuana in our neighbor to the west. About 25 states now allow that to happen. I work in the trucking industry. Oh, by the way, I live in the city of Hudson. I work in the trucking industry. I have for many years. And in case you haven't heard, there's a shortage in the transportation industry. A trade magazine called Transport Topics from June 5th and another issue from June 12th of this year says that starting in January of 2021, so 27 months ago, CDL Drug and Alcohol Clearinghouse, a federal program, has reported that 110,856 CDL holders, most of them are truck drivers, tested positive through the end of quarter one of 2023. 80% of them have not started a return to work program. There is such a thing. If a truck driver is caught with marijuana in their system, they're out of a job immediately, but there is a return to work program. 80% of these 110,000 people have not entered that program. The National Safety Council and the American Transportation Research Institute, two more governing bodies, all concur with this data. There are 25 states who have legalized marijuana. No matter what the law of each state, pot is still illegal according to federal law. Truck drivers and all CDL holders, these are bus drivers, your motor coach bus drivers, school bus drivers, dump trucks, you name it. If it's a big rig, it's a CDL. They are prohibited by federal law from using pot. Company policy testing by private employers will catch most of this. The rest of it is caught by roadside and way station inspections, and then any accident on the highway and anything that's going to be workman's comp related will catch this. And so it's a devastating thing to the transportation industry, and I would hope that Wisconsin would not follow the crowd in this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Alan Klein and Lisa Christensen will be followed.
Good evening. My name is Alan Klein, and I live at 1325 County Road J. I don't know how many of you have made a visit to this site, so just let me try to paint a picture to illustrate its character. There are farms, homes, and woods all around this property, as far as the eye can see. Farms, homes, and woods. There's no signage or other suggestion of any sort of commercial activity in the area. This is not an area that's already transitioning from rural to some sort of commercial, not at all. It's farms, homes, and woods. There are a few exceptions. We have a town hall where we gather for various government meetings and things like that. They allow the residents of the township to have graduation parties and things like that, but their rules are very strict about no alcohol. Immediately across the road from this parcel is a 155-year-old historic church that our community, through hard work by volunteers and charitable contributions, has maintained and kept in good repair. Once a year, there's an ice cream social there to raise funds to maintain the church. There are occasional weddings held there, not very many because it's quite small. But, again, it's without alcohol. A short distance from there, there's a cemetery where some of the earliest settlers in the area are buried. For better or worse, I don't know of any alcohol served there. And finally, down the road, there's a nature preserve where people can spend time in nature, hiking and observing a recreation of an original prairie. There are special projects done by school groups, university students, and others, but nothing to do with partying or alcohol or anything like that. None of these exceptions to the general rule change the basic character of the neighborhood. They support the community rather than detract from it. And I believe it's a highly unlikely place to rezone to allow operations that would alter the basic rural character of our neighborhood. Thank you.
Lisa Christensen. Lisa, and then that'll be followed by Brian Lawrence.
Hi. Hang on a second. Come on. My name is Lisa Christensen. I live at 1280 County Road J, right across County Road J from the property in question. Thank you for letting me speak. On behalf of my family and neighbors, I ask that you do not rezone 331 County Road Double J. It does not make sense to take a 24-acre lot right in the middle of residential properties and fields of corn and beans on a major intersection in Kinnickinnick Township and rezone it to Ag 2. There are too many opportunities within the zoning for the current and future owners, and the repercussions are endless to surrounding property owners, not only with disruptions of our quiet country living, but possible property value decreases. I would like to ask the board to go back to Ag 2 zoning and redefine it. There are too many opportunities within Ag 2, from manure processing facility to wedding venues. It is too much, and the zoning does not take into account the residents, like in this case, that surround this property. We live in a dense area, and we would like to keep our quiet and peaceful living. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. And Dylan Koser will be after him. I hope I pronounced that right.
Hi, I'm Brian Lawrence and live at 331 County Road JJ in River Falls and have submitted the rezoning request for an R2 to Ag 2 on our 24-acre horse farm property. I grew up on a small farm with horses. I recently retired after 41 years in engineering at 3M, and we want to fulfill our retirement dream of having a small winery and a tasting room in retirement. We have followed all the rezoning processes outlined to us by the county. Our horse facility has been in operation since at least 1995, and we bought it in 2018 while it was zoned RR, rural residential. However, we apparently were changed from RR to R2 in 2020 and therefore cannot obtain a conditional use permit. And we were advised by the county to request the zoning change to Ag 2 since we meet all the requirements of Ag 2. Ag 2's zoning includes both horse-related activities and a winery and a tasting room, which is what we desire. There are already several Ag 2 properties near us, including 2 on the Kinnick River, and there was 65 Vines Winery a mile away that closed recently, so we're not requesting anything new. I also want to mention that Wisconsin state law requires wineries to stop serving at 9 p.m. We meet the criteria for Ag 2 zoning, and our request is in line with the township and county comprehensive plans and meets the agriculture preservation goals. We will follow all township and county rules like noise, hours, etc. So I ask for your support in approving our rezoning request as recommended by the County Community Development Department. Thank you.
Dylan and John Solom will be after Dylan.
You did a good job with my last name, by the way. Hi, everyone. My name is Dylan Kozier. I live at 1250 County Road J in River Falls. I'm one of the neighbors of Brian and Patty Lawrence, and actually I can see their property kitty corner to where I live currently. Recently I moved to the area from Chaska, Minnesota, which is a suburb of Minneapolis. Some of us could say it's sort of a concrete jungle compared to Kinnickinnick Township and River Falls area. When moving to River Falls, I was really ecstatic to have local and countryside activities at my fingertips. Oftentimes I ride my bike down Cemetery Road and County Road JJ to simply just observe the scenery. Just down the road from the Lawrence's property is a pumpkin patch where families can stop in and partake in fall activities. Along that same road there, if you keep going down further, there's goats, and where you can see them grazing, and oftentimes I get off my bike and I take photographs to send to my friends and families. The Lawrences in particular have an absolutely stunning property. I encourage anyone to go out there and simply look at it. Where you can see horses free to roam, grazing in their pastures, and if you're lucky, sometimes you'll get them to neigh back at you. It's pretty entertaining. After finding out about the Lawrences, where we're applying for an Ag 2 status, I furthermore got excited. This could potentially mean more activities for the community and reasons for people to get together and experience this wonderful countryside that I'm now experiencing currently. For me personally, not to be selfish here, but from a financial perspective, when I look at additional activities in the area, I look at it raising my property value and everyone's property value around us. I know there have been some concerns raised about the Lawrences and of a potential tasting room. Even if the Lawrences did have an Ag 2 status, a wine license is still required with that. This wine license is renewed on an annual basis, meaning if things get out of hand, community guidelines get broken, then that wine license does not get renewed. This should make all immediate neighbors, township level personnel, and county level board members breathe a little bit easier knowing this. All in all, I recommend that you all take this into consideration and follow the recommendations given by the Community Development Department and approve the rezoning request. Thank you very much.
Thank you. John Solom, followed by Brian Vaughn.
Did I win the Mega Man? Whatever. Anyway, I'm here on behalf of Patty and Brian. And I just wanted to talk to you about, we've gotten to be real close friends. I've been in the horse business all my life, customer and boarding facility. I've seen the entertainment at the barns and that, how people enjoy it, the families do. I think it's a special thing that they're doing. I've talked to Brian about it. He's never mentioned anything about these big weddings and whatever's going to happen, but I think it's a plus. I don't live directly by them, so don't throw any rocks at me, you guys. I live about 2 miles south of them, but I'm very familiar with the area. And I really think it'd be a plus. They're great people, and like I said, being in the horse business, I see all what goes on at the training facilities, the boarding facilities. I had a boarding facility myself. I still own a 46-acre horse ranch there on 1157. But anyway, I'm supporting them. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian. And Jenna Lawrence will be next.
My name is Brian Vaught. I live at 1297 County Road J. The Community Development Committee did not recommend this. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong. They recommended denying this rezoning request. I've heard that 3 times. That's an incorrect statement. This is not about the character and integrity of the Lawrence. My wife and I, Kelly, and our family, we share the property line directly with the Lawrences. We live right next to them. So this is not about them. And I'm not asking you to in any way infringe upon the property rights of the applicant at all. This is not about their character. This is a zoning issue. They knew what the property was zoned when they purchased it. Furthermore, there are people who bought lots and built homes and chose where to raise their family, maybe where to retire, based on the zoning. And I think there's a reasonable expectation that there's some continuity in the neighborhood. If I was to submit a rezoning application, check all the boxes, pay the appropriate fees, because I want to put a Quick Trip in my front pasture. There's not a Quick Trip in Kinnikinnick Township. That's probably the only township that doesn't have one. Certainly you would say no. And that would not be infringing on my property rights in any way, shape, or form. You would say, no, it's not going to go there. That's not appropriate. Quite honestly, there's just too many possibilities of things that could happen with future owners. And so I'm asking you to reject this rezoning request. The intentions of the applicants, that's not the issue. What they say today, that's not at all the issue. It's what could happen in the future. And it could turn into a semi-quasi-commercial endeavor. And we live right there. And I am very concerned about property values. I'm very much concerned that this could turn into something that could get out of hand. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jenna and Krista, you're next.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jenna Lawrence, and I live at 1250 County Road J in River Falls. I want you to know that I'm in favor of the rezoning request to Ag 2. I think a winery, tasting room, and horse activities are a great use of their beautiful property. These activities bring the community together and are nice places for family and friends to gather. Please approve the request. Thank you.
Thank you. Krista, and Patty Lawrence will be after Krista.
My name is Krista Paschal. I live at 372 Old Cemetery Road. I'm approximately 900 feet from the Lawrence property. Mr. Lawrence has been hosting events on the property and charging people for quite some time without a permit and posting the events on his Kinney River Farms Facebook page. He states on his application that he wants to do a wedding venue, regardless of what they're saying here today. According to the St. Croix County GIS map, within a 1 mile radius from the Lawrence property, there are 86 addresses and 168 tax parcels. Within 2 miles, there are 314 addresses and 578 tax parcels. This is a neighborhood. We did not build in a development, but this is still a neighborhood. It's across the street from the town hall and a baseball field that is used by children and family. There are no sidewalks, there are no crosswalks, there's no way for kids to get across the street. And where he's proposing this is literally across the street from the baseball field. We do not live in a development, but again, as I said, we live in a neighborhood and it's communal living. We live in a valley where sound echoes for miles. There's a recreation area with people standing on the road, fishing over the bridge where there is parking space, which is approximately 800 feet from where the entrance to the wedding event center, wine tasting room, proposed parking would be. 800 feet. It's close. And every day I drive by there and there's typically somebody there fishing, standing on the road. There is approximately 140 acres of DNR land within 1,200 feet of the property where many people come to deer hunt, pheasant, and turkey hunt. The Kelly Preserve is less than a half mile from the property. There are kayakers, hikers, and bicycling clubs, sometimes 20 to 30 people at a time in one group that use the area every weekend. Weather permitting, they drive it down Old Cemetery Road, turn on J, and then double J. Kinney does not have emergency services, so we rely on the St. Croix County Sheriff's Office to respond to calls. It takes 20 minutes to get from there to here. In the state of Wisconsin, there's no policing of wedding venues and event centers. There's no state rules on time limits, noise ordinances, or even a requirement that the owner has to have a liquor license. I'm asking that you deny this rezoning request. Thank you.
Thank you. Patty Lawrence. And if I can read this. Oh, Patty Schucrack will be next. I'm sure I didn't get that right, but I hope I'm close.
I think it is.
Shootneck, okay.
SCHUK, whatever. I don't know where she is. Must be in the room next door, I'm guessing. I'm Patty Lawrence. I live at 331 County Road JJ in River Falls. I'm the co-applicant along with my husband, Brian. I'm a computer science major. My husband's an engineer. We've never gone through this process before, but we follow rules and guidelines. And we did our homework before we purchased the property. Back in 2018, when my husband said, you know, I really want to retire in the country, let's go for it, let's follow our dream. I attended some Kinney Connect Township meetings at the town hall. I sat through the meetings where 65 Vines, which is about a mile from our property that closed a couple of years ago, applied for their annual wine license. My husband talked to the county and said, does this qualify for this? We were told, yes, you need a conditional use permit and you apply for your annual wine license. We said, great. About 3 years ago, we planted 225 grapevines. They should start being ready to produce next year. It takes 3 years till they produce. And one vine, I think, makes about 10 bottles of wine. So we should be ready to start next year. At that time, my husband went to the county, whatever it's county, get it straight, the county development office, and said we want to apply for this conditional use permit to open our winery in conjunction with our current horse facility. That's when we learned, unbeknownst to us, we were rezoned from RR, rural residential, when we bought the property, to R2 in 2020. We found out only this year that R2 does not allow us to get a conditional use permit. However, the county department of planning suggested we apply for an Ag 2 and said you still need your annual wine license, but what your operation is now and you want it to be in the future falls under Ag 2. Our property has been a large horse facility for over 30 years. Prior to that, I think it had cattle based on the barbed wire fence around our ponds. So we filled that out. We went to the township. They approved it. I think somebody said that they didn't approve it at that meeting, but the community, it's the community planning department, your staff group, John Hilgers, the administration group, recommended our proposal. However, at the 5-person planning meeting, they voted down 2-1, and primarily after the chair said, people have zoning because when you purchase a property, you ought to be able to have the rights in the future that you thought you had when you bought it. And I just want to say that works both ways. When we bought our property, it could have a conditional use permit and it could have a wine license. We weren't part of the rezoning process in 2020. We weren't even aware of it till we came this year. And they said, no worries, you qualify for Ag 2, the township and the county both want ag preservation, which we would do. And so we're asking you to support it. We want to continue. Somebody mentioned we're having events that don't have a permit and so forth. Our place has been, including when the Petersons owned it next door, the previous county chairman, had a large breeding facility. It was rented out for $30,000 a year, at least, to a professional trainer.
Could I ask to please wrap it up, please? I'm sorry.
The event she's concerned about is a half-hour, one-on-one private riding lessons to children. We invite the parents and grandchildren to come with them. We give them a cookie and a cup of coffee so they can watch their child interact and have a short riding lesson. Those are the events people are complaining about so far. That is it. Thank you.
Patty Schutnick and Harriet Lansing will follow her.
Good evening. My name is Patty Schutnick, and my husband Shane and I have lived in Hudson Township for 26 years. We have known Brian and Patty Lawrence and their family for almost 40 years and would like to share a little pertinent background in support of their rezoning request of you this evening. Over the years, we have visited the Lawrences in 6 different homes in Minnesota, Iowa, and Wisconsin. They have been residents in town, on the outskirts, and in the country. The predominant theme in all locales was that they were exactly the kind of neighbors you would desire. Brian and Patty maintained, took pride in, and improved each home they owned. Brian grew up on a farm, loves the outdoors and horses. When they found and purchased Kinney River Farms, they both said this was their dream home. As pictures of the property show, they are meticulous owners and responsible land stewards. Their boarding facility and arena are immaculate, the buildings and landscaping beautiful. Any event hosted by them will be thoughtfully planned and conscientiously executed. The Lawrences are family-oriented people. Their children and grandchildren have developed interests in and appreciation of the outdoors and animals under their guidance. In their retirement, Brian and Patty would like to share these experiences with others in the community. As a retired teacher and grandmother myself, I believe the types of family-friendly events proposed would be beneficial and enjoyed by community members. Their ideas for a fall festival, pony days, wine tasting are events that would bring families and neighbors together. Under the Ag 2 designation, there are limits in place as to the number of events and size of the gatherings. These limits will ensure that this zoning change will not adversely affect neighboring properties. The Lawrences are considerate and conscientious neighbors and will take excellent care of their property and neighborhood. I hope you will grant their request and allow them to share their beautiful setting with the other residents of St. Croix County. Thank you.
Harriet Lansing, followed by Kelly Vogt.
Thank you. My name is Harriet Lansing, and I live at 1325 County Road J. I'm reorganizing here to try to observe carefully your limits. I do want to emphasize what a previous speaker said, that the CDC recommended denial of this petition. And so I was quite surprised to hear the other speakers say that it recommended approval. I was there, and I think that the comments that the chair of the CDC made thoughtfully summarized the reasons for the denial of the zoning request. He emphasized the rural character of our community, the disruption that would be caused by the noise and traffic of the proposed use, and the importance that the immediately surrounding and affected landowners be considered. not just the desire of the person who wants to launch out on a use that is not available on the property. As you know, and as other speakers have said, it's not a personal thing against the Lawrences. What we're dealing with is a zoning category that is not going to be gone with the Lawrences or come with the Lawrences. It is going to stay with the property, and that's a very comprehensive change from what we have now. It would be a major change, and it has been somewhat difficult to know how to respond to some of the suggestions, because there's been a moving concept of what it is that the Lawrences will do there. They started out on their application saying that they were going to do weddings, and now we're down to what appears to be an accessory use of a wine tasting operation. And I think that there may be some problems with that, because that would be almost a primary use, and there's a very strict limitation on that. It can only be an accessory use, and there has to be a continuing primary use. So I would encourage you to look carefully at that. I would encourage you to think about this community that has been a happy, peaceful community and has worked together in the projects that have been discussed by others. And we have the burden of proof is on the person seeking the change. And I don't believe that they have met that burden of proof. As I say, it's been a changing target of what it is that they propose to do there. And really, that's not what matters. What matters is that it will open up this whole panoply or Pandora's box of things that could be done in the event of a sale or other things. Thank you very much.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Thank you. Kelly Voigt, I hope I pronounced that. Vaught, sorry. And that'll be followed by Andrea Carpenter.
I'm Kelly Vaught, 1297 County Road J. We share a property line with the Lawrences. I would like you to know that the Lawrences did purchase their property knowing it was zoned residential, which allows them to fully operate their horse facility successfully. If rezoning to Ag 2 is allowed, many allowed operations are inappropriate based on location in a residential area. And a lot of those are weddings, barn dances, winery, manure processing, commercial dog kennel, storage of egg byproducts, club or lodge, junk storage, fur farm, manure storage, dead stock hauling, government, institutional, or nonprofit community uses, egg entertainment, and farm exhibitions up to 15 a year, and then conditional would get them more. We should assume that Mr. Lawrence and future property owners would take full advantage of the broad range of businesses and permissions allowed by rezoning. This is very concerning, and a large majority of nearby residents are opposed. Reading through the zoning, Ag 2 looks like it was intended for working farms to supplement their income. Of the Lawrence's 24 acres, nearly one half is wetland and personal residence. The rest has 2 large barns and pastures. This is not a working, operating farm, and there is not enough farmable land to become one. Ag 2 permits agricultural entertainment as an accessory use, which should be incidental and associated with the primary agricultural use of the property. Accessory use cannot be engaged in unless primary agricultural use is actively maintained on the same parcel. The Lawrence property doesn't fill the requirements, if that's a true statement, which is what it appears to be. Any venue tents would be set up close to our property line. Commercial events, including all of the noise, would be within 25 feet of our driveway, allowing people close, easy access to our yard, house, and barn. 9 families live within 300 feet of the property. Events will regularly disrupt the lives of everyone in the community and provide no benefit. It is not equitable to allow one family to negatively change the character of an entire community. Please accept the recommendation of the CDC and refuse the rezoning requests by the Lawrences. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you. Andrea Carpenter. It'll be followed by Terry Higgins.
Hi there. I'm Andrea Carpenter, and I live at 1292 County Road J. Previous meetings, there has been a visual here. I printed one just for myself. I know you can't see much, but it does fit on a letter-sized piece of paper. This is the parcel in question. This is where we live. This is where our 4 boys play. They fish at a couple of the bridges nearby. They want to play ball at the town hall right close to our house because that's what we wanted when we purchased the home. We purchased it just less than a year ago, and our goal, again, was to bring those 4 boys into a neighborhood setting, a country neighborhood setting where they'd have more room to explore, play, and grow. And when our neighbors approached us and told us about this potential rezoning and the application for that, I instantly thought of how quickly that peaceful setting that we just acquired was going to go away. The privacy, the safety, all of it could be in jeopardy. It was almost like I had a what did we just do kind of moment. And in those moments, I need to think about my neighbors that have been there a lot longer than me and a lot longer than the Lawrences even. I can't imagine how it must feel for them to have their roots so deep and then be faced with this potential change. Access to the Lawrence parcel is not isolated. Us neighbors would be dealing with increased traffic, including strangers that would most likely have little to no understanding of the area. These drivers would be unpredictable, especially around my family. Wrong turns, potentially impaired, all within 300 feet of where they would be outside playing. My point is, there isn't some country back road leading you to this parcel. It's not some 40-acre farm in the middle of nowhere that's being asked to be rezoned. This is happening in our front yard. We're here tonight not to rezone the Lawrences, it's for the parcel. And I think that's important based on a lot of public comment. We're rezoning the parcel, or they're asked to rezone the parcel that they live on right now. That does not rezone, that's not saying that that's going to change. The property could change hands tomorrow. Their ideas could change hands tomorrow. We don't know, and nobody knows how to predict the future. If approved, this rezoning is going to change the lives of the neighbors. It's going to expose the Kinney to people and business operations that could harm its natural beauty, and it'll leave us residents wondering what makes the change worthy of the risk. Thank you.
Thank you. Terry Higgins, be followed by Becky Turnbull.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to express my concerns. My name's Terry Higgins. I live at 311 County Road JJ. I am the primary southernmost neighbor of the Lawrences. Although the Community Development Department doesn't recognize this request for rezoning from R2 to Ag 2, I challenge that position, and here's why. The Wisconsin Supreme Court has defined spot zoning as a zoning whereby a single lot or area is granted privileges which are not granted or extended to other land in the vicinity in the same district. Spot zoning, according to Wikipedia, is the application of zoning to a specific parcel or parcels of land within a larger zoned area when the rezoning is usually at odds with the city's, or town in this case, master plan and current zoning restrictions. The defining characteristic is the narrowness and unjustified nature of the benefit to the particular property owner to the detriment of general land use plan or public goals. The rezoning may provide unjustified special treatment that benefits a particular owner while undermining the pre-existing rights and uses of adjacent property owners. Spot zoning is when a zoning ordinance is amended to zone a relatively small area for uses significantly different from those allowed in the surrounding area to favor the owner of a particular piece of property. Rezoning should be consistent with long-range plans based on considerations which affect the whole community. Therefore, spot zoning should only be indulged in where it is in the public interest and not solely for the benefit of the property owner requesting the rezoning. Based on these and many more sources which echo the same rationale, I conclude this situation pretty much meets the criteria of spot zoning. Spot zoning should not harm surrounding areas. It is not favored since it smacks of favoritism and usually annoys the neighbors. Understatement. Dr. C. Tom Williams, president of Citizens Coalition for a Safe Community, claims spot zoning is a reward for the rich, connected, and unconcerned. Spot zoning is a dangerous precedent on many levels, as it easily leads to the undermining and deterioration of residential communities,
And if you can please wrap up
housing
shortly,
values,
please.
and erodes cities and towns in this case, as their master plans are chipped away one rezone at a time. Thank you.
Thank you. Becky Turnbull. Who will be followed by Josh Leeson.
Hello. I'll try to go fast. My name is Becky Turnbull. I've lived in St. Croix County for 20 years. I met Brian and Patty Lawrence when we moved to Hudson, and they were a welcoming neighbor on our street. We were neighbors for 16 years until they moved to their dream property, Kinney River Farms, in 2019. They are kind, respectful, trusting, and would never do anything detrimental to their neighborhood. In those 16 years that we lived in the same street, we were excited when their house was chosen to be on the Hudson Christmas Parade of Homes, and our entire street hopped in to help. They are the kind of people that make our area a better place to live. As we got to know the Lawrence family, we knew that on top of their busy work lives, that Brian volunteered to coach kids in multiple sports, and Patty and him both taught Sunday school. They are both active volunteers in our local schools and in our community. I believe the Lawrence property, Kinney River Farms, is a perfect place for families. They do a great job at providing family fun activities for all ages, and they love to get people outside in the country to relax and enjoy the outdoors. Wineries and tasting rooms are low-key, have early closing times, and are special places to bring friends and relatives to. I believe these are the kind of places that are incredible or add value to our community. I believe that this meets all the guidelines for Ag 2, aligns with the township and county comprehensive plans, and meets the agricultural preservation goals. It is my recommendation to you that you approve the rezoning request from R2 to Ag 2 today on August 1st. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Josh Leeson, followed by Bart Bartos.
Good evening, Josh Lyson, 452 Old Cemetery Road. We own the Pumpkin Farm a mile north of the Lawrences. My wife and I are here tonight to support them. Our farm has become very popular in the neighborhood. People enjoy visiting. People enjoy visiting on-farm activities. So we both think that it would be a positive to have that in the neighborhood. If they have more activities that the community can do, it's only good for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Bart Bartos will be our last public comment.
Hi, my name is Bart Bartos. I live at 332 County Road JJ. I'm right across the street from Brian and Patty. I've gotten to know them quite a bit since they lived there. I've even played Santa Claus for their grandkids because one of them's getting too smart for his grandpa to play it now. I ask you to approve their request. I think it supports the community. I think you've heard a lot of things. A lot of people are speculating things that are very unlikely to ever happen. Depending on whatever number you want to use about how much usable acreage they have, I don't see a CAFO coming in there. No one's going to spend the kind of money per acreage for 12 usable acres, 20 usable acres, to store manure, to have a CAFO, to bring in an exorbitant number of animals. There's other restrictions that limit the number of animals per acreage, as you guys are very well aware of. I think many of the neighbors are speculating stuff. That isn't going to happen. I grew up in Roberts, 6 miles away, small town, lived there just about my whole life, short of a few years in college, and I understand the country life. I know the community. I think they would be a good asset with their future endeavors. And I just want to add, too, that to everyone in the community that's so worried about the community, I hope to see you all Sunday at the Ice Cream Social working alongside me. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Any other public comment? I will ask if there's anyone else who'd like to make any comments. Thank you for everyone who spoke. I know it took a little bit of time, but I think it's really important for our citizens to be able to share their opinions for our consideration. So thank you very much. We're going to move on to our consent agenda. Do I have a motion for a consent agenda? Supervisor Burning, Supervisor Barklow, second. And we're ready to vote. Okay, thank you very much. That was easy. We're going to move on to presentations for our explanation of storm warning signals. Terry and Natasha.
So I'm going to try to explain briefly how the events occurred and why they occurred according to our procedures in St. Croix County. So the outdoor warning sirens are not termed as tornado sirens, they're outdoor weather sirens. When you hear them, it's meant for the people that are outdoors so they can go inside, get inside, tune into a local radio, TV, internet, or listen to your NOAA weather radio for information. The Emergency Management Office has encouraged everyone to purchase a NOAA weather radio. That's a direct link to the National Weather Service, and they'll provide any necessary information. The county's outdoor weather warnings are broken into 4 quadrants. It's kind of a clockwise rotation around, with the southwest being 1, northwest being 2, the northeast 3, and the southeast 4. In quadrant 1, there's Hudson, North Hudson, Roberts, Hammond. Quadrant 2 is Somerset and Richmond, the town of Star Prairie, the village of Star Prairie, and Deer Park. Quadrant 3 is Deer Park and Glenwood City, and quadrant 4 is Woodville, Baldwin, and Hammond. You might notice the Deer Park and Hammond are in 2 quadrants just because the counties broke up into that north-south line on County Road T, Hammond directly on it, and Deer Park being so close, we decided to have Deer Park in both because the weather could be affected in them either quadrant if it's warned. Chanhassen Weather is the body that issues watches and warnings for St. Croix County. The definition for severe thunderstorm or tornado watch is the conditions are favorable for development of large hail, damaging winds, and or tornadoes are possible. But the exact time and location of the storm development is still uncertain. Storm warning definitions. A severe thunderstorm warning is meaning that it's imminent or it is occurring. It is either detected by weather radar, reported by a storm spotter, and the severe thunderstorm is one that produces winds at 58 miles per hour or stronger and or have hail that is 1 inch in diameter or larger. A warning means to seek shelter. The tornado warning, of course, is there's a tornado that is imminent or it is occurring. It's either detected by radar or is reported by a storm spotter, and it means, again, to take shelter. The wireless emergency alerts, in my world, we refer to them as WIA. It's the same thing like a Amber Alert when you get them on your smartphone. So tornado warnings are one that'll trigger a smartphone notification. If you're within that polygon that the National Weather Service issues, your phone will get an automated message, basically whether you like it or not, it's going to come to your phone. The same thing goes for a thunderstorm warning if the criteria is a hailstone of 2.75 inches, which is baseball-sized hail, and or winds that are 80 miles per hour or more. So remember, the initial one started at 58 miles per hour with 1 inch hail. So there's criteria, and I'm not going to get way down in the weeds, but there is a threshold when the thunderstorm warning reaches a certain criteria, you'll get a WIA message on your smartphone. Of course, there are other watches and warnings that the National Weather Service issues to St. Croix County that the Communications Center filters and dictates, according to procedure policy, how we handle them. From the winter storm to the blizzards, the flood watch warnings, wind chill warning advisories, and the red flag warnings when it's really dry out. When a watch is issued, whether it be a thunderstorm watch or a tornado watch in St. Croix County, the Communications Center will broadcast for law enforcement, fire, EMS, and St. Croix County Highway, so they're aware of it if they're out and about. Thunderstorm warnings, again, at the 58-mile marker or a hail that is 1 inch in diameter, the action includes activation of the outdoor weather sirens in those affected quadrants. Again, broadcast to the law enforcement, fire, EMS, and the highway department, so they're aware if they're out and about in the field. When a tornado warning is issued, it is, again, radar indicated or has been observed by spotters or somebody that has knowledge connecting them to the weather service. Again, the outdoor weather sirens are activated for the affected quadrants. We broadcast it on the radio on M3 radio channels. We have to activate the links notification for those employees in St. Croix County at any of the campuses, and then the public address system here in the government center. The message that comes from the Weather Service isn't a black and white statement. They draw the polygon, of course, but the information that we get goes through a software program. If it's just our county, there might only be 2 or 3 municipalities that are included in the message. My staff have to filter that and determine which quadrants they're going to notify the sirens on. And if it's a very large area where there's 2 or 3 counties involved, again, there's a certain number of municipalities that the algorithm, as they told me, only allows a certain number. So it might be a huge polygon with several counties, but it only might be 1 or 2 municipalities in our county that's labeled. My staff have to filter that and do the best they can for that. So this is an example of a weather message that comes through. This one here is a thunderstorm warning for southern St. Croix County. It was until 3:30 p.m. The thunderstorm was located near Roberts or near River Falls, moving southeast at 35 miles an hour, and the thunderstorm will be near Hammond and Baldwin at them times. So in this case, it was quadrant 1 and quadrant 4 that they activated the sirens and proceeded with the procedure for notifying everybody. Wisconsin Emergency Management recommends multiple ways to receive weather alerts. It's recommended to have 3 ways to receive them, and of them, it does not include the weather warning sirens. They recommend the NOAA weather radio, internet and apps that many of us have access to. The WIA alerts that'll come for them 2 categories of storms. And again, local TV and radio are options for you when you get in and tune in. Now on Monday, July 24th, a week ago yesterday, at 2:43 p.m., the North Hudson Police Chief reported on the radio that there was an electrical outage due to weather with wind and rain. At 2:49 p.m., multiple reports had been received by the 911 center of tree limbs down. There were some electrical fires with the tree limbs that were down on the power lines, and there was a report of a tree on a house. In a very short amount of time, they had received all these calls. And at 2:52 p.m., again, no warning has been issued by the Weather Service as of yet. I called the National Weather, advised them of the damage that the county had received thus far, specifically in Hudson and North Hudson, and they took that information, and at 2:57, they issued a warning, a thunderstorm warning for Roberts, River Falls, Hammond, and Baldwin. And again, quadrants 1 and 4 where outdoor weather sirens were set off. On that day between 2 p.m. and 8 p.m., now remember it was about 2:43 p.m. when everything started. I put up there Monday, July 17th, 1 week prior to the storm. The calls for service for the 911 center increased almost by 80 calls in that same time frame. Calls for service are the incidents that we log for the public safety people out on the street. The radio transmissions on the calm day was 438, and they quadrupled radio transmissions on Monday during the storm. Phone conversations the 911 center had was 183 on the calm day, and we went up to 291. We also flexed our staff up to 6 during the event since there were so many phone calls coming into the center. One of our generators fired up at the tower site, ran for 7 hours and 7 minutes. The UPS in the basement with the 911 center provided uninterrupted power for the staff during the event, in between the utility power disruptions here at the government center. Hudson Fire also activated their disaster card, which also brought in 8 other fire departments into their service area, and it also activated our mobile command vehicle to go out and help relieve some stress off the 911 center during the event. So I'll add as well, the following day on the 25th, we went with the National Weather Service representative to North Hudson. They wanted to see the damage. They had to do their damage assessment to determine whether it was tornado, straight line winds, downburst, and the representative that was with us came to the determination it was a downburst. I don't know all the technical aspects of that, but that's what it was that day. When they were out with us, he took some GPS locations of specific damage, went back to their office that afternoon and called back and spoke to Natasha Cardinal, relaying information about the wind speeds that their system advised it was at that time, at them locations at specific times, and they admitted that they made a mistake. So, and they said that we could say it was national weather that made a mistake. So again, I encourage the citizens, and you as well, to go to the county website, Emergency Support Services, for more information. Our mass notification as well is one of the ways you can get weather notification. There's a part you can click in there and sign up and get automated pushes from National Weather when they assign certain type of weather-related information. And you can control that however you want to receive that. Any questions?
Supervisor Burning.
Thank you very much for putting this together. So are we able to work with Adam on getting some sort of PSA out to help educate residents of the county to understand what the sirens are actually for? Because I feel that a number of calls and people saying, well, we don't know if it's a tornado or if it's, and you explained it very eloquently, but I am 99% sure most of the people that called me are not watching this tonight. So is there a way that we can work with Adam in getting that out to the community to the county? Yeah, we can certainly do that. Again, it's on our website every April when it's Severe Weather Awareness Week. Every day of the week they're pushing out social media wise information, but we can certainly work with Adam and push more information out. Yeah, super. Okay, and then a follow-up on the wireless, the WIA. Mm-hmm. Is that pushed out to devices by location or by service address associated with account or bill? So the WIA is very similar to an Amber Alert. It's pushed out if you're within the polygon that they draw at the National Weather Service in their program. It's any wireless device within that boundary, you will get the push to your phone or device. Okay, and then is this an opt-in or is this a straight push from? It's similar to an Amber Alert. So straight push. Straight push. Because I never opted in for those, but I get them. Yep. Okay, so and then a follow-up question to all of this is there anything that you need or anything that you can see that can help us improve for the future on something like this happening? Is there anything that we can do as a county or go to our state legislature and work with them on anything? As you're noting as well, education. Any help we can in getting education to the public, making them aware. As you noted as well, there are several people that still believe it's a tornado siren. And I realize down south, they rely on that as being the tornado siren itself. But as many of you know from the Hudson area and Richmond and other parts of the county, we receive more damage from windstorms than we do tornadoes. So education is a huge thing. Okay, and then thank you to your staff for flexing up and working on that. So thank you very much for doing this.
Supervisor Leaf?
I just wanted to thank you and all of the first responders, all the police, fire, EMS, the Red Cross. This obviously impacted my village of North Hudson. I was without power for 27 hours. It's a first world problem. My roof was still intact. I still had all my trees in my yard, but you were all there and we thank you for it.
Thank you.
Yes, we all thank you for you and your staff for everything you do. We really appreciate it.
And if I can add one more thing, just as information for you, on Thursday afternoon, the police chief, fire chief, and any of the other representatives from the departments that were involved were having a meeting, a follow-up to debrief and make sure if there was anything any of them noted that if we can improve on. So that's forthcoming as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Terry. We're going to move on to our West Central Regional Planning Commission presentation. This must be Scott.
You're correct. Good evening. Thank you for having us here this evening. Us being the West Central Regional Planning Commission, along with the Regional Business Fund. So I pop up the slides here. All right. Yes, thank you for the opportunity to give you an update here. We'd like to do this once a year if we can. And this is also an opportunity to introduce myself. I'm Scott Allen. I'm the new Executive Director for West Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission. And I just started in mid-May, taking over full-time after doing some 6 weeks of overlap with Lynn Nelson, who I'm sure you know as well for her many years with Regional Planning Commission. So I will be starting things off and then turn it over to our Regional Business Fund Manager to take over from there. So at your spot, hopefully everybody has a your own paper copy of our kind of informational folder. Within that, there's information on the Regional Planning Commission as a whole on the left side, and then more specifically in the Regional Business Fund on the right side, along with information business cards actually for myself and our Regional Business Fund Manager. Also, the back on the left side is a specific economic profile that the Regional Planning Commission provides to member counties. This one is for 2023, produced in January of this year. So what are regional planning commissions? We'll kind of walk through this pretty quickly. I'll turn it over to Toby to talk about the Regional Business Fund. Regional planning commissions were created over 50 years ago now to focus on regional aspects related to community planning, demographics, economic development, grants, mapping, natural resources planning, public administration, and transportation as well. There are 9 regional planning commissions in the state of Wisconsin. You can see the map here. It's listed alphabetically. Although we're number 9, we are number 1. So just that's alphabetical in nature. You can see the 7 counties that are represented by the Regional Planning Commission. I'll get more specifically into that here momentarily. Specific to West Central Regional Planning, it's 21-member commission, 7 counties, so 3 representatives per county. There's also an executive committee, which is made up of 7 members, so that's 1 appointment per county. More specifically, you can see a map here of the 7 counties with St. Croix County highlighted, and the county board supervisors who are represented there, including Supervisor Barkalow and Supervisor Hansen, as well as former supervisor who's also on the commission, Ryan Sickard. Again, does not necessarily need to be county board representatives per se, specifically and exclusively on the commission, but traditionally, typically 1 or 2 have been from each of the counties, and again, not all of them need to be county board supervisors. But you can see here the list of those who are presently on the roll. This is our updated organizational chart, highlighting the different areas, green being the Regional Business Fund, 3 staff members there. Again, Toby will talk more about that more specifically. Yellow being administrative staff, and gray being myself, as well as, again, overseen by the full commission and that executive committee. We have 15 staff members now, grew by an additional staff member back in April to add another senior planner. So adding some capacity to the roster as well, which also explains why you did not get an update in person last year, just overwhelmed with a number of projects per Lynn Nelson's expertise at that point. Kind of passed on our annual update, but we're reinstating those now here this year. So what is the general goal of regional planning commissions? Again, it's to assist units of government in planning for physical, social, and economic development needs of the region. Again, that's emphasizing assisting units of government, so assisting counties, towns, villages, and cities with those different planning aspects in particular, and kind of emphasizing those who don't have access to a large number of professional planning staff in particular, but not exclusively. But that is kind of where we get a lot of our requests for service, if you will. So we do that in three ways. We serve as coordinating organization. We assist those units of government, as noted, and provide technical assistance. The services provided by regional planning can be summarized under four general areas: economic development, transportation, community development, and conservation and mapping. Here's just a list of some of those types of projects, programs, and such that we participate in and assist with in those different categories. So economic development, you can see the list there. Transportation, a lot of transit, bouncing back here, safe routes to schools. We have a staff person now we're able to dedicate exclusively to that effort. Do corridor planning, rural and urban transit plans. You see some of those highlighted in local media as well in terms of the data that we provide and in their different reports each year. Community development and conservation and mapping. So community development is very inclusive, as you're very aware, with your own department. Again, a lot of those types of products and projects provided here. Outdoor recreation plans, we have some staff members really focused heavily on assisting with those, as well as grant writing administration, doing a lot of that currently with a lot of new federal funding sources being accessible in recent months and years, especially since COVID, and we'll get a little bit more into that here shortly. We've seen an uptick in assisting with grant writing and administration. So highlighting some specific projects, programs related to St. Croix County, again, last year and into the first half of this year, in coordination with Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation, provided administration, again, talking about COVID funds, a Main Street Bounce Back program of $10,000 grants awarded to 860 organizations in the 7-county region. So that took a lot of effort to organize and administer that. And that included 174 in St. Croix County alone, so $1.74 million provided through that program. We staff the Stormwater Outreach Coordinator for the Rain to Rivers of Western Wisconsin. St. Croix County members include 3 cities, Hudson, New Richmond, and River Falls. We also participate in the West Central Wisconsin Rail Coalition, which is supporting future passenger rail service to the region, in particular from Chicago to the Twin Cities. Again, we staff the Regional Business Fund, which Toby will talk a little bit more about here shortly. Back in 2022, last year, we provided 11 loans for the county, including almost $890,000 with 124 jobs created or retained, which helped. This was the most impressive number. We had to double check our calculations on this, but it was over $6 million in private funds were leveraged through these 11 loans. So that was really exciting to see that high level of private investment assisting with these public loans. We produced a City of Hudson Transit Feasibility Plan update. That was last fall. You may have seen that as well. And now we're working on providing administrative and implementation support for a new shared ride taxi or shared ride transit service. Serving on the management committee of the St. Croix Valley Business Innovation Center down in River Falls. And in coordination with the Public Service Commission, PSC, we're continuing to provide administration outreach to region's broadband implementation group or broadband alliance. You may have heard it called that. and we're essentially coordinating a lot of those discussions and meetings. Heard just today that there are 53 interested members or residents and business leaders within the region that are participating in that group alone. Again, we provide those and prepare those annual county-specific economic profiles. Again, it's included in your packet. And we're currently working on completing an updated St. Croix County Hazard Mitigation Plan, connecting back to your previous agenda item. And we are just launching the Village of Roberts and Town of Warren Joint Comprehensive Plan update. And we're actually just working through putting together the survey that will be going out to community members later this year. So with that, I'll tag over to Toby, who will take over talking about Regional Business Fund.
All right, thank you. I'm Toby Lemahue. I work as the fund manager at the West Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission. And as Scott alluded to, most of my time is spent on the contract that the Regional Planning Commission has with a nonprofit called the Regional Business Fund. The nonprofit Regional Business Fund was created by the Regional Planning Commission back in 1995 to administer business revolving loan funds. So Scott talked about our community sorts of projects that we do. I work with businesses, so we do both. The Regional Business Fund as a nonprofit has a separate board of directors. There's 9 members, 1 from each of the 7 counties, and then 2 at-large members. And then, as we alluded to, that we're staffed by the Regional Planning Commission. So same footprint for our programs. I'm not going to go into the details of these programs, but just want to mention that we are a public source of financing, so we're not competing with the banks or the credit unions that are offering loans to businesses, but rather we're providing an additional source of capital for those businesses that can't get all of that financing through a traditional way. We do that through a few programs. I do have a brochure, annual report, and other goodies in your packet there. So if you have questions about our programs, you can refer to this brochure. You can check out our website or just call us too to talk through projects. We do that often when we're talking through different sorts of structures with people as well. Since the nonprofit was organized, and actually these data are just from 2007, but you can see that we've helped a total of 175 businesses just in St. Croix County, includes 79 startups, and I think that's also very relevant. A lot of times those startup companies cannot access that traditional financing, so that's a good spot for us to kind of help out those startup companies. But 182 loans, and then there's some other metrics there for you. We've assisted, this is one example, but we've assisted some other businesses in St. Croix County, as Scott alluded to as well. I do have a couple of lists that are in your packet if you care to listen to or look at all of the different businesses just for the last couple of years, year to date, and also 2022. But to name a few, we've helped Indu Sales and Services and Family Therapy Associates in Hudson, Woodville Cafe in Woodville, Triple Tire in New Richmond, White Ridge Auto Repair in River Falls, Riverview Propane in Somerset, and then Valdez Lawn Care and Snow Removal is just moving into Roberts now recently. So we're just kind of helping out kind of silently behind the scenes with some of these transactions. And then also Kanoki's Chocolates and Nuts with their project in Hudson here just recently. 2 Regional Business Fund loans assisted with that project. One revolving loan fund that helped as a gap source of financing in conjunction with the bank financing and SBA financing. That helped out with the interior renovations and the acquisition of that building. And then also we have more of an incentive tool, a facade loan that assisted with the exterior renovation. So you can see kind of the before and after that facade loan assisted with. And that comes with a 1% interest rate. So just keep that in mind if any of your downtown commercial buildings are in need of any exterior renovation. It's a nice tool to be able to use. We can lend up to $60,000 to those businesses for those renovations. So I just wanted to mention that. And then just also a thank you. We partner with a lot of individuals that live in St. Croix County with our programs as a public financing tool. I alluded to our board member, your St. Croix County board recently nominated Marina Onken to serve on the Regional Business Fund Board of Directors. Previous to her, Dale Jorgensen served in that role for 6 years, and his last year he was the president of the board. So thank you to Marina now and to Dale in the past. And also none of our work gets done without the decisioning of committees, many committees, and one of which is in St. Croix County as well. And 7 members are on that committee. At least one person has to be a commercial lender or has that accounting background to help with that underwriting process. Those members are listed there: Adam Bast, Rick Bondlender, Susie Coram, James Krieger, Josh Linseth, Lynn Paps, and Julie Wilson. So thank you for them for serving in that role. And also a thank you to Bill Rubin. He acts like our boots on the ground. He is the St. Croix County Economic Development Executive Director, pulls us into meetings with businesses at some times, and also helps to get the word out about our programs. So with that, I want to thank you for having us come today to talk to you about our programs, and we'll take any questions on the Regional Planning Commission or the Regional Business Fund.
Any questions for Scott or Toby? Okay, I guess not. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on. I'm going to turn over to our county administrator for a little recognition, or I should say a lot.
Ellen Denzer, come on down. So Ellen's been with St. Croix County for 35 years.
Yep.
The last third of which is as the community development director. You know, the last few months, watching Ellen wrap up some of these last meetings, BOA and community development, and at the Wisconsin Towns Association, now at the county board, you know, I hear her talking to people and telling of the stories of all the things that she's done, she's encountered and seen in St. Croix County. And that's really what this is about, Ellen. We want to thank you for the impression that you've left in St. Croix County, everything that you've done. You've left a lot of work here that we're going to continue on, and we just want to recognize the impact that you've had on us. So thank you very much, Helen.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much. That means a lot. When I first started with St. Croix County, I had a whole lot of projects that I was told we have to get done, one of which was building this beautiful building. And I was the coordinator, might be the right term. I went with every department head, every employee, everyone. I coordinated with the architects. I coordinated right up until they started digging the hole. And then I was kind of off the project, which was fine. I enjoyed that. I got to know people. I really got to know all the operations of the county government. Before that, just before that, one other big thing I had to do was, I'm not going to go through 35 years. It's going to keep, but there's a few highlights from the beginning that might help you understand why I did decide to stay as long as I did. We also had to hold the first household hazardous waste collection. And the very first one was held in downtown Hudson and on a big slab of concrete with a tent. And it was in April. And we thought we picked a good day. We didn't know that much about when clean sleeps would be done, you know, spring, that kind of thing. Well, that day it chose to sleet, rain, hail, and snow. And we were not kidding. We were outside in that. We had over 400 people show up. You could not see past 2 cars. The rain and the miserableness was coming on, and it wasn't a little short, quick storm. It lasted past the whole entirety of the event, which was for 4 hours. And not only that, but we were now here we are dealing with hazardous chemicals, never done it before, we're all a little scared, got a good company helping us out, and we're standing in this deep of water. Because it happened to be a former building site for a big building down there along the railroad corridor, and all the water came right where we put the tent. So it was quite the experience, and I had a bunch, back then county board members were very involved, and I had 3 or 4 board members who came to that event, and we had this tight budget. We got a $50,000 grant, and that's all we were allowed to spend. And we had a line of cars, and like they say in that one movie, many registered voters. So I went to those 3 board members and I said, what do you want to do? Are we going to turn them away? Because the company was keeping us informed, and we had hit the $25,000 in about the first, or $50,000.
Actually, I think it was reversed. It was 25,000 and 50 is what it ended up costing. But we were going to hit that about an hour and a half into it. And they said, full speed ahead. So we did it. No vote, no nothing. We did it. We kept going. And it was a lot more money, but the county found the money. And I know that ever since then, there's been fantastic support for the household hazardous waste collections. And I've been at every one except a couple when I was pregnant. So I've been at a lot. And when it came to building this building, it was a lot of work. It was a lot of challenges. And I thought I was done. And I actually, they were building. They're out there for a couple years. And I moved on to a different project, the first redistricting I had to do. I've done 5 redistrictings, which, from what I understand from a lot of different places, is a lot. Most people don't. When I took on the redistricting, the first thing my new boss, and by the way, during that clean sweep and some of the other parts of the events, the person who hired me left. And he was gone for about 9 months, or before they hired another person. So I got to step up and try to run the department for about 9 months. So I did have a little experience, Ken, little. And also got to write my first budget that time. Yeah, so anyway, that was pretty exciting, and I enjoyed that. But more importantly, I was told when I started the redistricting, well, you're young, and my new supervisor, my new boss said, you're young, and the last time he was involved in redistricting, he got fired. Had nothing to do with him, had to do with county board members having to run against each other, and that was in Wisconsin. So they let a lot of employees go, but especially anyone who had anything to do with that redistricting. So he said, you do it, you're young, you can start over. Well, I don't like to fail, and so I sat down and I read everything I could read about redistricting, and I came up with a list of guidelines. And back then, they created a redistricting committee because there was no GIS. There was nothing like that. When I first sat down at the county, I didn't even get a computer. I was asked, can I at least have a typewriter? Because I could type. I got a manual. About 3 weeks later, I got an electric. About 6 months later, I finally got one of the first PCs in the county. Everybody else had terminals at that time. So, and I was expecting a computer. It was very disappointing. Anyway, so the county, I had to get my mind back on track, but the redistricting, I wrote this list, and I went to this big committee, and at that time, committees were everything. We had 31 county board members, so they had to have something to do. And so there was a committee of about 8 people. And I went to them and I took this list and we talked about what is the purpose of redistricting. And one of the people on that committee was a man named Bernard Kinney, who was on the county board until he passed away. A few of you are nodding, you remember the name. Bernard was a character to the nth degree, but he was a really good person. And I could tell you some stories offline about him. It would be a little too colorful for here. But he kept pounding the table. He liked to pound. And he kept talking about how he lost one of his best friends from the 1980 redistricting. And they never spoke again. And so he did not want that to happen again. And he was very supportive. And so they adopted those 10 guidelines. Those two had to run against each other. And one of them lost, obviously not Bernard. And so then the other one never spoke to him again. So that made a big impression. What I had asked for made a big impression. And they followed those guidelines, and we followed those guidelines every year, and I didn't lose my job. And also there was definitely, with this kind of the county growing the way it does, there was races back and forth all the time. And so I think that made a big difference, and I think that's what I have brought as a part of my approach, is always to try to educate, inform, and then ask, what do you want us to do? And I'll just tell you one more part of the story. So I get all done with that big project. Now remember, this is just my first few years here. And I have the next big thing is someone, our new county administrative coordinator, realizes we got to move. So the next thing I got to do was write the first records grant for the first records retention ordinance. And then help with that. Heather might actually remember that. And then they said, well, how are we going to move? And back then, it was a common thing to do is if no one else can do it, tell the planning staff to do it. So I got every unwanted job. That's the truth. And so I organized the move to this building. I hired a company. I did an RFP. I organized the staff. I told them how we're going to do it. For all those staff members who are here, you might remember before just a few months ago, there were still some pink ABCs down in the basement. I put those up 30-some years ago. And they hung out and they were used for all that time. So just to put it in perspective, I have done a lot of wonderful and incredible things. I was the person who was contacted and didn't give up when someone contacted us about buying homestead parklands. And I went to county board members and they said, don't even bother. Don't even bother. It'll never happen. Give up. I don't like to give up. I don't like to quit. And I like to try. So I went to work on it. And before I was done, we owned homestead parklands. We developed it. And it's one of the most beautiful sites in this county. And we preserved it. And I'm very proud of that. And usually lightning doesn't strike twice in your lifetime, but that started with a simple phone call. How would you like to buy some land? So then, we started out with that wonderful mitigation package and of money from the state of Minnesota, officially. And we had a lot of things we needed to do, and we did a lot of things. We bought land, we developed economic impact analysis, we helped do stormwater management for communities. We also were able to rewrite the zoning ordinance finally, and that's completely all good things. But after we bought the first parcel of land, actually the second, I never expected to have what happened, which was someone called me up, I answered the phone, and they said, how would you like to buy our land? And that's how we got Eckerd Bluff Lands. So I just want to tell you that I could go on and talk about a half a dozen more things. I'm very proud of the fact that I was part of the very first comprehensive plan in St. Croix County. 31 board members, it passed by 1 vote and was really tough. Was part of rewriting numerous ordinances, some of which took 3 and 4 public hearings over months and months and years. Very proud of that. Very proud of things we did with the mitigation money. When I took over as director, one of the things I promised was I just saw it. I was cleaning out old files and throwing things away in preparation of the move. Right there, a letter talking about what the goals were the year I was hired to rewrite the zoning ordinance and adopt a new zoning ordinance. It didn't get done. So one of the things I promised is in its entirety was that was going to happen. And during the time I've been director, we've rewritten it twice and had what we call comprehensive revisions that allowed the towns to have the right to do their own zoning. And I'm very proud of the fact that we accomplished that twice. I have an amazing team of people. They've turned over a lot, but every person I've hired has been a great asset. And I really am proud of everything I've been able to do for this county, and I appreciate the ongoing support. So last little tidbit, at the end of all those things in that first few years, and especially during the time frame when I had to kind of fill in, when we didn't have a director, my committee wanted to do something for me. And they went to somebody, I don't know, HR, wherever, and they were told, no, we don't do things for people. And so they passed a resolution and put it in a frame thanking me for my work. And when we were moving into this building, there were a lot of people who felt like, hey, this is pretty cool. And they didn't have Employee of the Year back then. But for the last meeting we had in the old county boardroom, in the old courthouse, which this will be someday, soon, they called me over. Oh, God, what do they want now? So I walked in, and I got up to the front, and our new county administrator said, well, Ellen, we just want to thank you for all the work moving into this new building, and we want to present you with, and from behind his back, he took a bunch of bananas and said, the Top Banana Award. So I have been the top banana, And I appreciate that I got a very, very beautiful plaque. Thank you. I'm going to put it right next to my resolution, my faded framed resolution, because they both mean a great deal to me. Thank you.
We'll do one other quick presentation, and then we're going to take a break. Quick break.
So the Employee of the Year, as Ellen mentioned, that it's a new program we just created. Kind of thinking about, instead of waiting until the last week of a 35-year career before we recognize our employees, maybe there's something else we could do. So we created this Employee of the Year with the help of Adam Kostanek. We put this together and solicited nominations from our 700 employees. We had over 30 nominations of employees. We then had a subset of the staff advisory group review all of those and give me 6 finalists for consideration. And it was a tough list. If you look at the list of the 6 finalists that we had 2 department heads, Heather Amos and Taylor Mabus. I promoted both of them within the past year and a half, so clearly I thought enough of them to promote them. We had Chad Wolski on the list. I mean, he was Child Support Worker of the Year in Wisconsin last year. Strong contender. Claudia Early at Health and Human Services. She does interpreting for us. Phenomenal employee, very well needed out there. Patty Thompson in the clerk's office. She's just been a rock in that department, over 20 years there. But ultimately, who I chose as the winner for it, and she's not here tonight because Employee of the Year should be about celebrating and not punishing someone by making them come in front of a group where she would not be comfortable. Marie Zielinski was the Employee of the Year. She's an activity aide at the healthcare campus. So I went out to her work in front of her peers, in front of her residents, and presented her with the award. And as I was sitting there with the residents eating cupcakes, because that's how they lured me out there, she was buzzing around the room and smiling, and I was talking to the residents, and they're like, she's like that every day. She's always happy. She's just a ball of energy. 45 years working for the county, and she represents our mission statement. If you look at our vision and mission statement behind me, it talks about service delivery with compassion, and that's exactly what she does. That's what she represents, and so she was selected as our very first Employee of the Year. So I just wanted to make sure that I shared that with you and not punish her and make her come in front of you.
Supervisor?
Yeah, I know Marie, and she's been there for so long. I remember her caring for my grandfather-in-law, my father-in-law. I've called bingo there, and she's just the most wonderful, caring, loving person. And if you ever had a need for a surrogate grandma or mom or aunt, you'd want her to be there serving you chicken soup when you had a cold. She is the most loving person in the world, and you couldn't have picked a better person than Marie.
Yep. Last story that they shared with me, she's been there 45 years. This is her 3rd career at the healthcare campus as activity aide. But when she started, her father said she had 2 days to go find a job. So one of her friends worked in the kitchen at the healthcare campus and says, well, let me talk to them and see if we can get you in there. So that's where she started. She was able to start right away in the kitchen at the healthcare campus. She eventually moved into patient care, and then for about the past decade now as activity aide. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay, well, we'll cease your punishment for a few minutes and I'll you to take a break, and we'll come back in about 6:45, please. I don't get to use that very often. Okay, your pain will continue now. That's just a joke. I'll turn it over to our county administrator for a financial report.
I thought that's maybe what the pain you were referring to. So in the packet, you'll see the June financial report. This is halfway through the year. Our revenues are at 45%, so they should be about 50%, but a lot of revenues are reimbursements, so they lag a little bit, so that's about where we'd expect them to be. Expenses are at 52%, just slightly over, which also makes sense because our debt payments are front-loaded, so everything's right where it should be. I did want to point out on page 65 of the packet is the ARPA projects. This is through June, but in July, we had an additional ARPA project closed, $300,000 under budget. So $300,000 plus became reavailable of ARPA fundings. All this has to be spent by the end of 2024. I will be bringing forward a resolution with some additional ideas on how to allocate those monies that the county board will need to approve. So new projects can move forward. So I have 4 or 5 ideas for you on that. And then on page 72 is the most important part of the GASB 75 OPEB. If anyone wants to read all 24 pages of that, they're welcome to. The important part is on page 72, though. It shows you the past 5 years, and you'll see that our OPEB liability, which is other post-employment benefits, decreased from 7 million all the way down to a very much smaller number. That is due to the change in policy that the county board implemented that sunset retirees staying on our self-funded health insurance plan. So the issue was that as a self-funded health insurance, we were paying for cost for retirees, and you could retire at 50 from law enforcement, 55 for general employees. They could stay on until 65, but those are also sometimes the most expensive years for health insurance. And self-funded, we were paying for all of that. So we had this huge liability that's just sort of followed us. There are other options available. There's the state health insurance plan that employees can get on, and there's also marketplace health insurance plans, which the employees that have retired since the sunset of this have been very happy with. So those options were always available. Sometimes they just hit the easy button, though, and stayed with what they knew. But the plans that they do have are available, and it saved the county a lot of money. I just wanted to highlight that because it's such a dramatic change from $6 million to $139,000 over that period of time that the county saves with that policy change that you implemented. Other than that, I would be happy to entertain any questions that you might have on the financial report.
Any questions? Okay, we're going to move on to our business items. I hope you enjoyed your 4th of July because we have quite a few items left over on our business items. It is getting a little late in the evening, so let's please keep our comments concise and specific, as I asked our citizens to. We'll start out with our first item, the amending the comprehensive zoning ordinance, the town of Kinnickinnic rezoning from R2 residential to AG2 agricultural district. Do we have a motion for that resolution? Supervisor Hanson.
Right. And the way this resolution is written, line 14, this ordinance shall not be codified. I move that this not be codified.
I'm sorry, can you clarify that, please?
If you read the motion, and St. Croix County Board of Supervisors does hereby ordain as follows. St. Croix County Code of Ordinances Land Use Development for the County of St. Croix, Wisconsin hereby amend the rezoning following its property lot 5, and then it goes on to describe the property description from R2 residential zoning district Ag 2 agricultural zoning district, the official zoning map of the town of Kinnickinnic on file in the Community Development Department shall be amended in accordance with this ordinance. This ordinance shall be effective upon passage and publication as provided, and this ordinance shall not be codified. and then it says dated this first day of August 2023. And the line 14, this ordinance shall not be codified. What does that mean?
Supervisor Hanson, that just means that it won't be added to Chapter 15 in the ordinance. It's a separate document that's published, so people know that there's a rezoning that has occurred. I believe what you would like to motion is you're making a motion to deny the rezoning request.
Oh, I misunderstood that line. All right, I'm making a motion to deny, right, the zoning request. Thank you.
Is there a second? Supervisor Van Sumeren.
I support that motion.
Okay, discussion. So the motion on the floor is to not approve the resolution and to deny the zoning request. Supervisor Shirley.
We had a pretty lengthy discussion on this on Community Development Committee, and I'll try to get my thoughts out that I had at that meeting as much as I can. I was one of them that voted in favor of the rezoning, and I did that in mind of that all of the department head or the department community development department suggested approval of this rezoning. And they follow all of the statutes and all of the ordinances that we have. I don't know how we can deny somebody a rezoning when they follow all of the rules and regulations that are in place. You know, if we want to change the rules and regulations for a future person and change how this is done, that's great. I'm all for talking about that, but we can't deny somebody who has followed all the rules and regulations.
Other discussion? Supervisor Carlson.
I support that the rezoning go through. Like you said, they followed all the steps. Our county staff said that they followed all our future land use plans, our county comprehension plan, our St. Croix County farmland preservation plan. Town of Kinney can approve it. They said use is consistent and complies with standards in chapters 15. So they met all the requirements. DNR did not oppose. The Highway Department did not say there was any problem with it when they were asked. The objections of the neighbors seemed to me to be a lot of speculation. I also live in a rural area, and I understand I don't want it right across from me. Also, I don't want it across my property also. But unless they're intruding on my rights, I have no right to tell them they can't do it. It's their land. It was all that speculation. It kind of comes down to landowners' rights. And there's some other considerations. Grapevines, wine, horses are considered agricultural by the state of Wisconsin. They've already been doing agriculture. It was RR when they went, so it got changed on them. St. Croix County and Kinnick Township want to keep agriculture and the care of our green spaces. This request does that. They're not even talking about building another building. The property has always been used, for as long as we know, for horse operations, which is ag. The property should be zoned R1 or Ag 2 due to acreage properly. It clearly meets the requirements because the property statement, the property has 14 acres of G4 agriculture land, along with 6 acres undeveloped and 4 acres residential. I also believe the vote at the July 17th community development meeting should be disregarded because the Lawrences were not treated fairly, and these are the reasons why I believe that. At the start of the meeting, the chair decided to open up the request for another public hearing without prior notice. The second one, the chairman had the people for the rezoning speak first. Then the people against the rezoning got to speak. And if you listen to it, there's tons of accusations, some personal, and they got to put the whole case out and they got to rebut what the first people said in June, and then they asked to rebut the Lawrences, and they were told no. So they weren't able to refute anything, and I don't believe that all the supervisors had all the information because they were not allowed to rebut. I've never seen It's just inherently unfair that one side gets to go first, the other side gets to speak, and then that's it. It also happened in the May meeting. They asked to rebuke some things that were said, and the chairman said no. So to me, it was just, some of them were personal attacks too. So it was just, the process was inherently unfair for them. So another one, yeah, let me see where I was at here. All right, look at this one. Oh, a motion was seconded and made to approve the zoning request. During the voting discussion, the committee chair said he worked on the Ag 2 zoning with the neighbor Dave Peterson, who opposes the request. And he said at the time, at the meeting, the county made mistakes when creating the Ag 2 zoning, and then he voted no to the request. So to me, that process was inherently unfair. So I believe we should support the rezoning.
Other comments? Supervisor Hanson?
Right. I think we ran a fair committee meeting, but I'm not going to address that. The zoning ordinance did not take into account the proximity of residences. And what I said was that we should have, and that we should retool that zoning ordinance, and we will, so that this doesn't happen in the future. There are many people who live near this property who would prefer to see it not be used for entertainment purposes. It's not a matter of how well-liked the new owners of the property are or what the use of is the property. In fact, when you're thinking about conditional uses should not be brought into the question of zoning at all. Zoning is not what the use of the property will be. It's really just black and white as to what the zoning law is. And I agree with that. That's not what we should be considering. And what the staff put together was absolutely correct. And what I'm motioning here is that we go outside of that with respect for property owners' rights. The property owners who were there first, the people who own the properties around this small farm who will be affected if this property becomes an entertainment venue, which they'll have the right to do, or if the future owner decides to do an agricultural business there, any of the functions that this property will be legally allowed to do, and you say, oh, well, that's not likely to happen. We don't know what will happen with this property once it's rezoned. It could turn into a manure storage facility because there will be a large demand for manure storage. With the advent of these manure digesters, there's going to be, and there truly will be, a great need for places to store the digestate that comes out of them. You could put 25 steers or 60 pigs on this farm. If the next owner of this facility happens to be somebody who loves having animals, you could do it legally because we rezoned it. You could do any of the things that you can do on any agricultural property with this property in a small area surrounded by other homes. And to rezone it because these are swell folks, and they are swell folks, there's no disrespect intended here, is not necessarily the best thing for the community. And that's really what we need to consider, is what's the best thing long-term for this growing community. And that's why I don't think, for the greater good, turning this into an agriculturally zoned parcel is the right thing to do. And it's a difficult thing because I feel the pressure from this room. But I still maintain it's not the right thing to do.
I'd like to call on John Hilgers from Community Development, if I may. to discuss the perspective from the Community Development Department.
Sure. Good evening, Mr. Chair and board members. So yeah, the rezoning application before you tonight had two public hearings back in May and July. It is correct, the report before you tonight from the committee is recommending denial on a vote of 3-2. That does contradict the staff recommendation that was put together in the staff agenda report, but that happens. That sometimes happens. And what staff looks at when we put together a staff recommendation is we do look at the comprehensive plans. We kind of talked about this at a prior meeting with a different application, is that to avoid decisions that are random and arbitrary, we review the comprehensive plan documents. These are visions and documents made up of maps and objectives that were put together by towns and the county. We also have a farmland preservation plan that was reviewed because Kinnikinnick is a participant in that program. So we reviewed those three documents, and based on our review of those documents, we believe that the request was consistent with those documents. I don't want to go into the details. All the information is in your packet. I don't want to rehash that. What I do want to say also is that when the committee reviewed the information, staff put the report together before the public hearing. So the public hearings were conducted. We received additional testimony and comment from the residences, and I think those are the items that Board Member Hansen's referring to. We had additional comment that might have changed the perspective from some of the committee members. So again, the staff makes a recommendation. That's our job. The committee's looking for that. But based on additional testimony and comment, the committee can take into consideration those additional comments. And in this case, that's what they did. So for the board's information, we do have the packet, the agenda, the staff report information. We also have the written comments from the neighbors who presented at the public hearing. Those are all included in the packet. The other thing I want to address is the spot zoning comment. So in our belief from a staff perspective, and this has come up at other hearings, spot zoning results when a decision is made to arbitrarily rezone a property that's not consistent with abutting properties. However, when a property is contemplated and anticipated in a long-range plan document, we don't consider that spot zoning. So in this particular case, to go from R2 to Ag2, it would not be a spot zoning. That agricultural component was contemplated in the farmland preservation plan and the respective comprehensive plan documents. So in case that comes up or if there's any concerns by the board members, just to clarify that.
Thank you. Supervisor Anderson.
I just want to echo some comments that were already made, and I'll be brief. It does meet the two comp plans. If someone else, their neighbor, wanted to zone to Ag 2, I agree with Supervisor Hansen that it shouldn't matter who's making the application. What just matters is the information behind the application, whether it's a relevant request or proper request. When it comes to property rights, what about the property rights of the owner? We can't. And then I appreciate the concern for the neighbors. I really, really do. But saying that we should have done that or we should have considered something that we didn't in the past, well, they filed their request with the current ordinances that are on the books now. And if we request that because of something reject that because of something we failed to recognize in the past, I'm all for reviewing that going forward. That's kind of like pulling the rug out from somebody who bought a property with expectations based on the ordinances that are in place now. And if we want to read that going forward, that's fine. I'm open to that review. But I'm not in favor of this denial because for the reasons that have been given.
Supervisor Van Summer.
I would agree with what Supervisor Hansen said, and I'd like to add a little bit to that. One of the things that the committee, the CDC committee recommended also, and I will read it, is in your package, based on the public hearing comments and the written history from the area landowners provided on the May 18, 2023 and July 17, 2023 community development meetings and proposed Ag 2 zoning district and agriculture entertainment activities would not be compatible with the existing development pattern of the surrounding area. That includes development, single-family homes of varying sizes, and the R2 zoning district. Now, with that in mind, and that's what we based on, that's what we decided that night, that's what we were looking at. You know, our nation is built on government by the people, of the people, and for the people. So as I see it, the facts before us, there's about 34 or 35 who are not for it. There was, counting tonight, there were 10 who were for it. So I would say the people have spoken. And that's a reason why the Community Development Committee rejected this, is because they would not be compatible with the existing development pattern. All of those people, those 300 addresses, I was amazed there were that many addresses within a short area. 300 of those bought that property as it is today. They didn't buy it as it might be changed to. And when they bought it, they were probably sold a bill that said, yeah, this is how it'll be. It's very quiet. There's no noise here. There's no, the traffic is light, all of those things. And now, because of one landowner who wants to change things, he can change that. But that's not the only thing. That change may be kind of slight. The problem with zoning is that once a property is zoned, there's no way of pulling that zoning back. And that's a fallacy that we work with in the zoning department. That's something that really does need to be changed. It's forever. It's just like PFAS. It's a forever issue. So once it's Ag 2, it can be, as everything that everybody has said, it can turn to that. And so I think right now would be the time, because of the opposition of the neighbors, and I was very happy to see that none of the neighbors wanted to exclude the Lawrences. They didn't want them to move out. They didn't want them to never see them again. They were all quite conducive to them. Want to live as neighbors. I think the best way for them to live as neighbors, and we're talking here not only about neighbors, we're talking about a community, because there are that many people. Because they want to live as a community, I think it should stay as a community. There are plenty of other places that you can have a wine tasting room. There are storefronts on every village in the St. Croix County where those things can be had. The people aren't opposed to them raising grapevines and having horse riding, but it's what would attract a lot of the other things that would come in with that. And then you've all heard the same stories I've heard. I think it would be best if we, as the CDC committee decided, say, no, it's probably not the best thing for that area. For some areas, yes, not the best thing for that area. Thank you.
Supervisor Carlson?
Yeah, I have a quick response to what he said, and I have a question for Mr. Hilger. Yes, we are a country of by, for, but we're also a country, the people, but we also are a country where individual rights are preserved from the mob. So, yeah, there might be more on one side, but that, to me, is not a weighing factor. It does weigh into it, but the deciding factor is they have individual property rights. And whatever, it doesn't matter, 99% of the people, how they vote, because by the Constitution, they're not allowed to take away their individual rights guaranteed by the Constitution. So the number on either side, I listened to the arguments, but the number on either side shouldn't hold sway. It's the individual rights of the properties, not what people think. And then, Mr. Hilger, just a quick question. I heard a lot of speculation that this horrible thing's going to happen, and this horrible thing's going to happen, and this other horrible thing's going to happen if we go to Ag 2. If it goes to Ag 2, can someone just say, I'm going to put in a manure thing? Can someone just say, and we absolutely have no control for perpetuity? I'm pretty new to this. I don't really know. So I'd like to hear your response.
So maybe to back up a little bit, the difference between the R2 district and the Ag 2 district, which they're trying to get zoning designated for, the R2 district allows some ag uses and residential development. The R2 just means they're allowed to have 2-acre lots with unlimited density. When you go to Ag 2, the residential density is limited to 1 unit per 20 acres, but you get to do more ag uses. So it flips. And so with the ag uses in the R2 district, just for example, you can do manure storage in the R2 district with a conditional use permit. What you can't do in the R2 district is farm-based biopower facilities. They have to be in the agricultural district. So we don't allow commercial or industrial manure processing. They have to be in industrial zoning districts. But if it's farm-based and it's used and put back on the farm, that would be allowed. So Ag 2 does allow most agricultural uses. Again, R2 is limited. It limits the number of animal units you can have on your property. You can't have more than 200 in the R2 district. But if you build a livestock facility, the setback restrictions in the R2 district are very tight. And then if you look at the property in question, you have the Kinnickinnic River and associated wetlands. On the south part of the site, that would also limit livestock facility development. So in reality, I mean, is it possible technically by zoning? Yes, but in reality, I don't see that happening. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Supervisor Adams.
Chair. Sir, is agricultural entertainment a part of Ag 2?
Yes, so in order to do agricultural entertainment, you have to be in an Ag 1 or Ag 2 district, which is what they're seeking. And the primary reason for the rezoning application was to conduct agricultural entertainment opportunities. And so we do have a broader definition that you see up on the screen, the very last paragraph. Ag entertainment allows a wide array of farm and farm-related activities, including nature-based tourism, fishing, hunting, wildlife, horseback riding, and then we get into educational experiences, wine tasting, on-farm museums, heading farms, and then we get into the hospitality services, the very last sentence on that page where it gets into weddings, overnight farm or ranch stays. So that's what comprises the ag entertainment definition. So you cannot do ag entertainment in any residential districts. You have to have the Ag 1 or Ag 2 designation. Because again, it's farm-based, and the definition of a farm in St. Croix County is 50% or more of your property has to be assessed as agriculture.
Other questions? Supervisor Burning.
John, thank you, as always. Couple questions for you. The limitations on these activities, what does state statute guide the limitations around these activities? So, for instance, weddings, I believe it's, I mean, this is just 15 per year, no more than 100 attendees, things like that. What do we have as far as limitations? And I have more questions after that.
Yep. So in the Ag 2 district, by right, if the property is zoned to Ag 2, the owners can conduct 15 ag entertainment events per year. If they exceed that amount, they have to get a conditional use permit through our Board of Adjustment, where it's scrutinized a little bit more because of the number of events. So again, in the Ag 2 district, permitted by right, you can have up to 15 events per year. As you follow the sentence here, in a case where it's anticipated that there'll be 100 or more persons, the owner has to secure an administrative land use permit. And then this is where we get into days and hours of operations, sanitation, solid waste management planning, directional signs, ingress, egress to the site. And then we also share that information with the town of Kinnick and emergency responders. So again, that 15 event threshold is what was established in 2014 when these districts were created, and those have been the standards since.
And so they can't be 15 weddings, 15 hayride, pumpkin pulls. I don't know. I grew up out in the country, but not on a farm. My wife would know this stuff better, but it's 15 events without a conditional use permit in what's defined here, correct?
It's cumulative.
Cumulative.
Yes.
Okay, thank
Yes.
you. That was okay. And then you had indicated that there were 2 public hearings conducted on this particular matter. I look back on the July 17th agenda and don't see a public hearing regarding this issue on the agenda.
So the initial public hearing was May 18th. And the issue was tabled for 2 months to get some additional feedback from the town of Kinnickinnick, at least offer them the opportunity to do so. So the item was rescheduled to the July 17th Community Development Committee meeting, and at that point, it was decided to open up the item for public comment through a public hearing.
So are public hearings supposed to be noticed? I'm sorry, that's directed over here.
Yes, and in this situation, I believe because the Community Development Committee tabled the decision, the process that they proceeded with was to then continue the public hearing at the continued meeting. But yes, public hearings are noticed, and in the packet, I'm sure we can find the packet page, the public hearing notice that was published in the paper is included in the agenda packet.
Okay, so regardless of that, okay, thanks, John. You can get off the hot seat now. Thank you. Robbie, do you have a minute? Yeah, sorry, Robbie. I love you too, buddy. Okay, so as you make your way up, I'll ask you the question, what's the traffic impact of something like this in this area on the roads?
Depends what event you're talking, how much traffic it's going to generate. I can't answer that question without specific event information.
Okay, was anything considered? Is this something that we should be considering when it comes to this particular parcel or this rezoning?
I would again answer depends. So we would treat it like any other business in St. Croix. If they do impact the public and create a safety situation, we do have mechanisms for review of that access as well as requirements of access improvement to safely accommodate traffic they generate.
So prior to this though, or prior to this meeting tonight, did we have that concern? Did we have a concern to go and conduct some sort of traffic study based on what was applied for rezoning?
That's a tough question to put to me based on a hypothetical zoning. So I tend
but
to...
I guess what I'm asking is, were you approached and asked, can you make sure that this is going to fit safety for traffic? And I mean, was that concern brought up to you to conduct that prior to tonight?
Community development does reach out on concerns like this, and we try to coordinate as best we can. Without hard data, Supervisor Burning, that's a tough answer.
Okay.
So as further details would arise, Highway also has some other mechanisms to handle access. So we would approach access probably slightly different if necessary, if safety becomes a topic of concern.
Okay, thank you, Robbie.
Other comments, questions? Supervisor Lynn.
Thank you. I feel like we're trying to turn this into the Somerset Amphitheater and put in a Jumbotron and invite the world. Wine tasting, I'm not a drinker. But people that have a palate for drinking wine and having a wine tasting, we're not talking about a bar. We're talking about an eclectic gathering place in a building that is already standing, and it's more than 2 acres, because the 2 acres is apparently where we limit turning this into this Ag 2. This is way more than 2 acres. And this family purchased this, and this is their land. And I understand that the people around also purchased theirs. I guess there are trees, there are fences, whatever you need to fit your property. Like I said, I hail from Somerset. I get the concerts. I get that. This is not that venue. Those people would be moving to my district. What we have to take into consideration is the landowners and their rights to do with their property. What has already, by the word staff, when I'm hearing staff, that tells me that there are people highly qualified that passed this and said, we're good, they've dotted the I's, they've crossed the T's, they've done the thing. And when you do the thing, And then you get slapped back by a committee that doesn't live there and says, oh no, we're thinking that now this is going to turn into a manure wasteland with a Jumbotron and a Somerset amphitheater. It's like, we need to stop and think about, I get tomorrow. We can't plan for tomorrow. We've got today. This family deserves their today. And I say, we give them the ability to do with their property as they deem. Thank you.
Okay, does anyone have any other quick, very short, concise, specific comments so we can keep moving this along?
Really?
I don't want to get to the point of rehashing, so let's please be quick. Supervisor Scher.
Just really quickly to go through what I know this to be as of today. Staff approves recommendation. Highway Department is telling us that if there are issues, they have recourses that that could reel them back in, and if there was ever an issue with that, they don't have the current facilities there to do anything much larger with the buildings that they have. So they would need to build something more, which would again be either a conditional use, some other permit that would need to come through. So what they have today would jive with what they're asking for, not the speculations of what could happen 10, 15 years down the road.
Supervisor Van Summeren.
Well, I'd just like to do a little bit of rebuttal to Lisa. Would you look at that the same way if there was a person who bought the property next to your own and for a gravel pit?
Point of order, Mr. Chair. Speaking to and from two fellow supervisors is prohibited. We should be speaking to the chair or addressing questions unless we want to suspend the rules.
I'm sorry.
Taken.
I'm sorry. Let me make that more broad. Would any of you like it if this were a gravel pit next to your house instead of a wine tasting? Wine tasting, by the way, also does take a special permit, so it's not just easy to do. It takes a permit in the township. So.
Okay.
3 seconds. I have a gravel pit next to my house, and I love my house. And it's in a great development. So that's just to answer the broad question.
Okay, the motion on the floor is to not approve the resolution that is in the packet. So if you vote yes, you're denying the zoning request. If you vote no, that means you're, how do I say this? If you vote if you vote no, you're voting against the motion to deny. In other words, you could correlate that to approving if you're voting no. So it's opposite. Am I saying that correctly? Everybody get that?
Actually, would you mind restating that one more time? Just.
You want me to repeat?
Yes.
A yes is to deny. If you vote yes, it's to deny the rezoning.
So that's 11 noes. So the motion does not pass. We now need a motion to approve the resolution. Supervisor Shirley?
I'll make a motion to approve the rezoning
Second.
request.
We have it.
Lynn really wants it.
Okay, second from Supervisor Lind. I'd like, well, let's just skip any other further discussion and let's go ahead and vote. Again, the motion is to approve the resolution approving the rezoning.
I think you still got to call for discussion, but you can close it quickly.
So
I
I'll
don't think
call
you can
for
skip past
discussion.
discussion on a motion.
to-
This is an important issue. I don't want to.
That's fine. That's perfectly fine. I'll call for any further discussion. And then we'll close discussion and vote. Again, yes is approving the resolution and the rezoning, and no is against approving it. That motion carries. The resolution is passed. And we can now move on to our second business item. Ken, you're up for this. Okay, I apologize. I guess we need a motion for the appointment of our new Community Development Director.
So moved.
Supervisor Anderson. Supervisor Leaf.
They're really fighting for it tonight. Community Development Director position, my recommendation for appointment of this department head level position is Jason Cheezit. He comes to us from Polk County, has great experience, a lot of motivation, really good customer service skill set that we're looking forward to, and that's my recommendation for you. And he'd be happy to present a lengthy speech if you so desire.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. Any discussion?
Well, let's at least let him wave at us.
All right, wave it. There he is. Okay, let's proceed and vote, please. Okay, wonderful, unanimous. Congratulations, Jason, and welcome. Sure, would you like to make a few comments?
We're going to keep it very high level. I grew up in St. Croix County on my family farm. I went to Amory High School, went to UWRF. I double majored in field biology and business administration. After school, I went on a short stint with John Deere dealership, working in their parts department. And for the last 9 years, I've been the zoning administrator for Polk County. Got a wide variety of experience in the land and water side with farmland preservation zoning, nutrient management plans, both on my personal level and on the work level. So I think I bring that to the table as I can see both sides. I'm a big advocate of transparency. A lot of the issues like we just seen here tonight can be very controversial. And I think as far as staff, and that's one of the hugest assets that you can bring is to be very transparent with the public, and that because we are working and serving the public. So that's what I've got. If you guys have any questions for me directly, I'd be more than happy to answer them. Otherwise, I look forward to working with you all and the citizens of Polk County, or St. Croix County. It's been 9 years, so anyway.
We'll get you a map.
Yep.
It's
So.
like church softball, start with one strike.
Forgiven.
As long as I get 3, I hope I don't hit the 3rd. So, all right.
That habit is hard to break. It'll take a little time. Ellen's last day is Friday, and Jason's first day is Monday, so the seat won't even get cold.
That's great. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to our third business item, a resolution granting easement to adjoining property owners of the Wildwood Trail. Supervisor Hanson,
So moved.
and second, Supervisor Van Summeren. A quick description, Supervisor Hanson.
This is to allow several things. The easement will allow livestock cross Wildwood Trail. It'll allow the crossing of agricultural, forest, timber, and land management and reasonable recreational use at the existing or future mutually agreed upon location. 3, it'll allow motorized vehicles, including recreational vehicles, agricultural motorized equipment to the Wildwood Trail for the purpose of traveling the property owned by the people who live along the adjoining property. This is really landowners' rights and the county getting along with each other in the spirit of neighbors. We're being good neighbors with the people who own the property along the trail. It's taken months and months of negotiation to come up with this easement. One of our neighbors is here, I think. Bill? Is Bill still here? No, Bill took off. Okay. All right. Bill Peavy was here. He's next door. Okay, well, tell him we're thinking of him. So that's what we have to say about that. If anybody has any discussions or questions, we have staff who can talk about it, and certainly our administrator worked very hard on this, and we appreciate it. So,
Questions, discussion. All right, hearing none, we're ready to vote on the motion to approve the resolution.
The second, we need the second.
Oh, we need a second? Here we go. Oh. Oh. All right. All right, wonderful. Okay, thank you. We're going to move on to our fourth business item, an ordinance creating Chapter 37 Uniform Addressing and Road Naming System. Supervisor Fiedler.
So moved.
Second.
Supervisor Ramberg, second. Who would like to discussion? Go right ahead.
This is a little bit unusual what I'm going to say next, but it's going to be so easy for us because we should be done in 30 seconds. But to make a long story somewhat short, congratulations to our Supervisor Ramberg and our corporate counsel and John Hilger, whom we heard earlier, for an enormous amount of work they've done on this ordinance. And it's been distributed widely throughout the county for over a quarter of a year. However, we've just become aware that some municipalities, probably due to internal communications problems, did not fully understand what we were doing or became aware of what we were doing, and they've asked us if we could delay what we're doing. And so to accommodate those people, I'm fully prepared to support referral back to committee and then refer it back to this body within about 2 months for full discussion at that time on what is sent back to this body. But to facilitate that and to be sure that the municipalities, when they get a chance to reconsider it further over the next 60 days, have the final product fully in front of them, Supervisor Ramberg is going to make 2 amendments, which I think are totally non-controversial, which if we can accept, then he'll make a motion to recommit the ordinance as amended to the committee, and if we do that, we'll be done. So with that, I'll recognize
Supervisor Ramberg.
Thank you. I think I can make one amendment that has 3 parts. And Corp Counsel's handing out the amendment for the 3 parts.
And we made a lot of sausage at our public protection meeting after I met with the Towns Association meeting, and comments were still coming in, and some of this clarifies it, but also sets the stage for continued cooperation and communication with them. The first one is, I'll just zip through them quick. The first one is on packet page 156, which is at the beginning where it talks about our intent. And you know I'm big on content matching intent. And our intent was to work in cooperation with the towns. And we did put that in there, but we said address numbers, and I'd like to add, and road names. Address numbers and road names is what the first section does on 37.01. The second section, 37.07A, is on packet page 160. And in there, then, we do grandfather in the towns that currently have road names and not require all towns to have numbers right away. That is what it read that way to some people. And hopefully the second paragraph clarifies that. Roads with word names existing at the time of adoption of this chapter in towns that use numbered road names may be allowed to continue in use unless required to be changed for emergency service reasons or for reasons consistent with this chapter. That's what the second portion amends. The last portion amends on section 37.09, which is on packet page 163. If we could add the words, and this is regard to appeal process, or an official or an affected town to the first sentence in there, to the words affected property owner. So what this ordinance does is, of course, promote safety and affords an appeals process that was never in place before, as well as works in cooperation with the road owners, the towns. That's my motion.
So your motion is to amend this, I'm sorry, I'm not reading it correctly. This ordinance with what's been handed out, simply just to amend and not, we'll do a separate motion to send it back to the committee.
Correct, because this sets the stage for a lot of comments we've been receiving and continued discussions.
I'll second the amendment.
Oh, Supervisor Leaf seconds. Any discussion? Supervisor Burning.
3707, there's excluded municipalities in here. Are those municipalities, are they ones that have their own zoning, or why are there, we've got town of Hudson, town of Troy, St. Joe, and Kinnickinnick may have words. Is that because they're the only ones that have road names that are not numbers? Or is it because they have their own zoning, or what is it?
I can answer that question.
Yes, thank you.
This language, this paragraph, is the exact language that's in Chapter 13, which is the subdivision ordinance for St. Croix County. And so you're correct that they have road names that contain words. There are other municipalities that also have road names that contain words, which is why Supervisor Ramberg was making the second provision motion to add that language to 37.07, so that any other municipalities that have roads that have words in them can remain the same. We just took the language in 3707A1 directly from Chapter 13, the subdivision ordinance that just references Hudson, Troy, St. Joseph, and Kinnickinnick.
Okay, and then a follow-up to that. So the motion to amend this is to amend it to send it back to committee to continue to be worked on. Is that what I got out of all this?
The motion is simply to amend.
Right now.
Right now.
This motion that we're going to vote on is to amend it.
Correct.
With the intent down the road, or.
Yeah, the intent is to table it for 2 months so the towns have more chance to review. And we want to make
Perfect.
sure we have all of our amendments before they review.
There was just a lot said and papers flying and words being spoken, and I just wanted to clarify before I vote.
Okay, any other questions, discussion? So the motion is to amend the ordinance as it's in the packet and then according to what was handed out and we've just reviewed. Okay, that motion passes. Now we need Supervisor Ramberg.
I'll make a motion to postpone or I'll make a motion to send it back to committee to continue discussions with towns.
Supervisor Barkalow, second. Sorry. Okay, discussion, questions.
Point of order, is this
Supervisor
is this equivalent to a table to a date certain?
No, they're sending it back to committee, referring back to committee.
Referring back to the committee. Okay, questions, discussions? Okay, we're ready to vote, sending it back to committee. Okay, that was interesting but easy. Okay, let's move right on to one of our favorite topics, resolution establishing the library levy for 2024.
Move to approve your library levy for 2024.
Second by Supervisor Adams.
I'm going to request an amendment to this. I got an email today from the librarian from River Falls. She had an error in her calculations. It should be $6.10 circulation instead of $6.11. It cost her $353, but she wanted to make sure she was honest with us.
That's great. Okay, what motion would you like?
A motion to amend to change River Falls circulation from $6.11 to $6.10.
I'll make a motion to amend the River Falls Library circulation from $6.11 to $6.10 per circ.
That's perfect.
Second.
Second, Supervisor Anderson. Gotta weigh me down sometimes. Okay. So, yes. So any other further discussion, questions? Okay, so yeah, let's do just do a voice vote, if that's acceptable. Okay, let's use our technology and vote correctly. And this is voting on the library levy as amended. Or the amendments, I'm sorry, yes.
Oh, my blood pressure's high, so
Okay, the amendment's approved. Now we need a motion to approve the library levy as amended. Or is that amended?
Yeah. I can discuss it though at length for you guys.
Okay. Okay, any further discussion? Okay, let's vote. Okay, that was unanimous. Thank you. Move on to number 6, the resolution approving application for county conservation aids grants. Supervisor Hanson. Is that a motion to approve? Okay. Second, Supervisor Shirley. Can we have a description, please?
Yeah. Conservation Aids Grant is a $1,998 50% match grant. It comes from the state. It's an annual grant. Generally, and I mean generally always, the Sportsman's Alliance is asked to come up with a project which is approved by the Community Development director and they go ahead and do it, you can't look around the county without seeing a small parking lot next to a wetland area or a dock or a kayak canoe launch. For the past 75 years, this organization has been improving access for people to enjoy the natural areas of our county, and it's this grant program which has made a huge difference in letting that happen. That's my pitch. I'm sticking to it. Please vote for it.
Questions, discussion? If not, we're ready to vote. Okay, great, thank you. Okay, moving along, resolution to accept 10 wells from the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources to be used for long-term aquifer monitoring. Supervisor Hanson, motion second. Supervisor Counter. Discuss, or go ahead, give us our explanation.
Okay. In 1984, the DNR established 10 monitoring wells due to okay, I know how to say this. TCL. Anyway, there's some terrible chemical contamination from the North Lake plant. The DNR is done with monitoring program and has offered the wells to St. Croix County. Staff contacted the owners to check and see if they would participate. 5 landowners agreed to a total of 7 wells monitored. 2 landowners preferred not to participate, and the DNR will properly cap those wells. So we will have the opportunity to monitor these wells, and would appreciate a vote of yes so that we can add some wells to our monitoring program. The little bitty wells, we're watching to monitoring wells. It's part of our, way back in 2014, Bob was participated in the water quality study, and this is adding to the wells that we're monitoring, part of our water quality. So, thanks.
Supervisor Counter.
Wasn't part of it also that they'd have the opportunity to be able to keep tabulations on the water elevation heights and stuff for long term, so we can monitor changes in the aquifers?
Aquifer recharge, it's the big, USGS they used to work with us a little bit, I think they still do. But the USGS doesn't quite have enough data on aquifer recharge, and that's a big part of what we're looking for. Yeah, it's kind of cool.
Supervisor Ramberg?
I think it's a good idea, but do we know what it costs to cap them?
Oh, it's an excellent question. The DNR is capping the ones that need to be capped.
Okay, how about those that we're keeping in the future?
Yeah, there is a cost to cap. We said at a committee, was it 1,000 or 1,500 per well at the time that they'll eventually need to be closed. So there is a minimal future charge.
Supervisor Carlson?
What is the charge of monitoring? And I'm assuming we're monitoring more than TSC now. And where does the money come from?
Yeah, so it's staff time to go out and test it, and whatever those test costs might be, the cost of the testing is fairly small. We're actually not monitoring for the chemical anymore. We're only monitoring for the information we're looking for.
Any other questions, further discussion? Seeing none, we're ready to vote. Come on. All right, thank you. We'll move on to number 8, amendment to Chapter 79 of the St. Croix County Code Ordinance, all-terrain utility terrain vehicle route ordinance. Do we have a motion? Supervisor Barkalow, second. Supervisor Carlson. Could we get a description, please, from someone? Ravi? You stayed this long, so we're going to make it worth your while.
This was a request from the town of Rush River to open a section of County Highway Y from County Highway N to 30th. This will allow a connection from the municipalities into Pierce County and connect a trail that runs through Rush River. So that is the request. The Highway and Sheriff's Department have no concerns with this request at this time.
Okay, discussion, questions? You're off the hook. Seeing none, let's vote. Okay, thank you. I have a quick question for Corporation Counsel to see if I can do what I want to do. The last three business items are fairly routine. They were all passed unanimously by the administration committee. Is it possible to take all three together?
That is a good question.
Didn't even mean to put you on the spot.
If they're all, you're gonna make if someone makes a motion to approve all three resolutions at the same time and it's seconded, then yes.
Okay, Supervisor Anderson?
I'll make a motion to approve business items 9, 10, and 11 all in one motion.
And a second, Supervisor Osnes. Could we have a quick recap, Audrey, on these items to make sure we know what we're voting on?
Yeah, the only one I don't think I was prepared for was 9, right? Is that the meal per diems? Right. I don't know if Ken wants to talk about that one, but.
Yeah, the per diems is, if you remember, we increased the personnel policy changing the per diems because of inflationary rates, especially with restaurants. Well, supervisors also have it. It's just in a separate spot. What we did was we've tied it to the personnel policy now, so we never have this conflict again between different rates. So that's all we're doing is catching up your per diems to what we did with personnel policies.
And then we have the introductory period policy. We removed the exemption for department heads. We did this basically to just match our current and past practices in which we have been and currently do require department heads to participate in and complete the introductory period. So we just want the policy to match our practice. We also clarified the need for promoted employees to complete their initial introductory period in order to be eligible for the PTO payout upon separation of employment. The travel time policy, this is a complete revision. As originally written, the policy was pretty broad and vague. I think it was about 3 sentences long. Now it's about 3 pages. So the HR department received frequent requests for clarification on what constitutes working time when traveling. So we rewrote the policy, defined, assigned, and approved travel locations, and specified the difference between working time and personal time, all following federal and state minimum wage law requirements, which kind of spell out what working time consists of. And the remote work policy, there had been some recent confusion around what constitutes remote work. Therefore, we just added a definition, basically clarifying what is considered remote work versus regular work practices that require an employee to work away from the office. We also added to the remote work expectations, requiring remote employees to be available and uninterrupted during work hours and to be available for in-person meetings and on-site training events. And that's those 3.
Any questions, discussion? Okay, we're ready to vote on the motion to approve all 3 of these items. They are approved. Thank you, Audrey. Okay, we're going to move on to our annual reports. And up first is Phil Landgraf of Veteran Service Office. Phil.
Good news. Yeah, all right. We're going to make this so quick. Okay, so, so first off, I want to say thank you guys very much. I appreciate everything that you do for the Veterans Office. I mean that. We reclassed the position, and in the last year, we've shown that there's over 300 veterans from VA data from 2021 to 2022. So we're going on the rise, and we need that extra help for people to be able to do the benefits for them. Speaking of that, I hope that everybody has received one of these in the mail. We did sent a save a date out. We're going to be having a Veterans Outreach event on the 13th and the 14th. And we are going to be doing that in the Armory in New Richmond, and then also across the way at Post 80 American Legion. That's where a lot of our ARPA dollars went to. So thank you again. I will say I have no more questions, or if you guys have any questions for me, throw them my way. Otherwise, I'll shut up.
Any questions?
Okay.
I just want to tell you, I thought the mailer was great. Just got it the other day. It's
Thank
fabulous.
You. Yes, no,
Really
and
good.
I hope that this is going to drum up a lot of business. We really want to try to get as many veterans to this thing as possible, and I think it's going to be a really great event. So I'm looking forward to it. Thanks. Yep.
Thank you, Phil. Okay, let's move on to Register of Deeds. Beth, Babs, there's Beth.
Good evening. You guys have been here a long time tonight, so I'm not going to make it much longer. This is always our 2022 annual report. So 2022, long gone, we've moved on. But the only things to point out in the annual report is if you look at the revenues, our predicted revenues for 2022 were higher than anticipated, so that's a good thing for the county. Our actual expenses were lower than budgeted, so that's a good thing for the county. So 2022, stellar year. 2023, not as good. We've actually lost one employee to Christine Hines. Jessica Lehman was promoted to first deputy in her office, so we're once again one person down. But we are surviving. Real estate recordings down significantly, no refis, with the higher interest rates out there. Not a lot of sales, not a lot of inventory in the real estate market yet. So the real estate market's a little bit sluggish. On the plus side, we do two things in our office, the real estate and the vitals, the unforgotten piece. Vital records, there were some statewide initiatives and statewide changes last year. So marriages, even if you're married in Polk County, you can actually turn in the license in St. Croix County. So it doesn't matter where you're married anymore, you can turn that in. We still have the statewide issuance and the death certificates. Both of those things have brought a lot more requests for vital records to this county. So more revenue on that front, more work on that front. One person down, we're gonna just keep struggling through for now, just because the revenues are significantly down so far this year. So we're gonna try to keep those expenses down because that'll make Ken happy, and that'll make you guys happy. So, but otherwise, any questions for me? You guys are always more than welcome to come down to my department, ask me questions in person, or stop me in the hall if you see me. So, otherwise, I'll make it at the end.
Any questions? Great, thank you, Beth.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, and we're going to wrap up with amazing. Here we are, Ellen and community development. It's kind of your last hurrah.
Absolutely. So thank you. I am going to just scoot down to show you a few pictures. It's going to be a long scoot here, I guess. So. There we go. So, a few highlights. Just since it is my last hurrah, I'm going to give you a few more maybe than you wanted, but I won't keep you that long. So one of the things we were instructed by the strategic plan to do was to look at outsourcing and trying to get improved operations and improved enforcement of our ordinances. So this past year we did, in 2022, we outsourced in two ways, stormwater and erosion control analysis, and we hired a firm, Stantec and Associates Consulting Services, and that has been working out fabulously. It's worked extremely well, and wish we'd done it a little sooner, and we think that it should continue to go on. Cost for that, last year we covered the cost to see how much it would be and how it would work out, and now we've worked out a way that we're passing the cost on to the consumer. We also contracted out for the former employee who was interested in, had gone on to bigger and better things, but also wanted to keep his hand in, has some ambitions regarding starting his own business someday. And so he was willing to work on soil tests and sanitary application reviews for us, which was very valuable. We were able to get 100% caught up in our soil test reviews and our sanitary applications. And that was good because we had staff turnover like many of the departments, and we had a lot of positions to fill, and so that really filled the gap and allowed us to keep going. Last year, we also, thank you all for all the work you do in approving what we bring for you. We had updates to our zoning ordinance, Chapter 15, and those were approved, and also an update to our floodplain ordinance, which had required improvements based on state statutory changes. I'll jump down a little bit and say that we've started our multi-year project to update the county comprehensive plan, and I'll have a little more on that in a minute. And one other thing I wanted to mention is that one other thing that came out of the strategic plan was to increase the number of nitrate screening clinics we held, and we did hold 5 in 2022 as requested, and we are doing that again this year, and we'll continue to do that. And we moved the second camper cabin in July of 2022 to our online rentals, got it out to Glen Hills. That was built in conjunction with a contractor, a private person who was able to do it and had connections to St. Croix Central Schools. So we still had our school connection, but it wasn't as strong, and that mostly had to do with COVID. But we also know that it's becoming harder and harder. Industrial arts types classes, that's an old-fashioned term, I know it's not correct, but they are not getting the students anymore, and so they're finding it very hard to do these kind of projects. So probably will, unfortunately, not be able to continue that. Going on along, a couple other important things. We finished a new bridge, a $36,000 bridge over the, replaced a wooden one with a new wooden one, but much nicer, much better built, that could hold the groomers. And that was done in the town of Forest, which was a positive thing. It was so positive that all the snowmobile clubs would like us to do that in a whole lot of other places. Unfortunately, the DNR has discontinued that grant program. So we won't be able to help them out at this time. Yeah, it was very popular once they got to go over it. They're extremely excited. Some of you recall we started last year our new project to build a new camping area. Vista Prairie is the name we've given it at Glen Hills. It's very, very nice. There are 15 campsites with electric and water, the RV ones, and with electric, the small tent or larger small, medium-sized RVs could use it also. A new dump station connects it. It sets us up for future expansion in that area of the campground, the park. There are porta potties, hydrants at each group area. Each group area has a small shelter to support it and the hydrant. And the new picnic shelter that we built is much more than a shelter. It's a very nice facility. It has 2 buffets, one at each end of it, in order to facilitate holding activities and events there. And we'll hope that starting with a lot of next year, really, because we didn't have a lot of time to promote it, but we'll start to see a lot of outside rentals, maybe some small weddings, corporate events, that kind of thing. Another important thing we did was starting to finish off, will be done at the end of this year, with the Orr Family Overlook, one of the other parks we purchased through the mitigation funds. That's the last little bit of open land that was left on Bass Lake, adjacent to the boat landing. We were able to complete last year 386 feet of boardwalk, which will be the first boardwalk in any county park. And we are putting on it and have already done it, got it about half done. Educational panels, so it'll become a really fun nature trail for schools and for kids and as they come and visit. And hopefully all of you will get a chance to get out there. We've got a few last little things we mentioned there that we're going to finish up this year that are underway. Our county parks attendance was up, and our revenues were up for the 3rd year in a row. We were over $400,000 in revenue. We estimate, and I'm going to say this, it comes up later how I calculated it and all, but we estimate that we went up about 6,000 people to about 66,000 people. And we think that's pretty good. And I also think it's pretty good that we were able to collect about over $400,000, considering the situation with the fee safes being stolen and the situation with the part of the campgrounds being closed while the new campground was being built. So that is pretty amazing. And the new QR codes that we did install early this year, that we started the process last year, are working great, and we're seeing an increase in how many people are buying and buying early. So that's really wonderful. As far as our budget, everything, we were not, had what, my first bad year. Disappointing, but we did come in over budget, and with our expenses were down, but our revenue was also down. So we adjusted our actual spending, but our revenue did not come in, and this had mostly to do with our resource management and our TRIM grant and working with our agricultural producers and practices they didn't put in. So that's about the only main area where we had problems. Issues and concerns, continue to be concerned about funding our water quality efforts, and would continue to like to see some direct funding come from the board. We're not asking for a lot. We'd really like to see a fairly small amount. What I've listed here does not include the well abandonments we do, which is also an important cost-sharing project, and we'd like to see you consider that. And that'll be in our budget, the budget presented to you, not by me. I can't say "our" anymore. It's so hard to get out of that habit. Kind of like saying Polk County, I'm sure. Anyway, so let me see. I wanted to also mention that our staff turnover, while continues to be a problem. There, sorry. This thing is so touchy. But we feel like we fill the positions with really good people, and then we train them up, and they move on to better jobs. And that is really great for them. We're proud of them. We're glad we were able to help them out, but it creates a constant strain on our staff. And they continually cite more funding, more money is the number one reason they leave. So, and it's not just limited to our land use division. It happens across the whole department. And I think that there are lots of opportunities we've tried to pursue with advancement this year, and those things will be presented somewhat within your budget and somewhat not. But I think it's important to consider that our staff really, and all staff in the county, needs to have a consistent, straightforward process. And I know that each department head was kind of charged with trying to figure out some direction and some specifics, and I think that's a really good thing, but I also think it'd be good to have some guidelines that we all could follow pretty consistently. And that definitely would recognize staff experience and skills. And so with that, I would also just mention, and I'll jump ahead to talk about that, and there we have a smiling face you all might recognize. Our social media outreach continues to grow and has continued to increase this year also. Our Halloween event at Homestead managed to break our own record only the second year, from 800 people to 850. Pretty amazing. If you get a chance, come on out. To see that many people, families and children in one day, in a few hours, you really all would probably have a fabulous time and enjoy it. So I encourage you to consider coming this year. Our kid fishing contests also have been very popular, and it's really picked up and had more kids coming, and that's another great event if you can get out there. We also have always historically offered our planning services for a small fee to our local municipalities, our towns. This year we had 3 communities take us up on it, and so we worked with Baldwin, Richmond, and Somerset. The Baldwin and Somerset plans were adopted earlier this year, and the Richmond one is getting closer to being done. Should be soon, and we continue to offer that service. So I'm just jumping right over here. I'm going to go faster and faster. A little bit more, I hope you will read a little bit about our comprehensive planning process. The staff that are handling it, Brett Boudreau, John Hilgers, and Nicole Peterson, are doing a fabulous job. They have, we started out by having a statistically reliable survey created through the Survey Research Center. We got 441 responses, which was well over the number we needed. The opinions of the county go across all areas of a comprehensive plan, and they continue to show that we are doing a really good job in just about every area. I'm not going to get into it here. I did do a little update that Ken got to hear at the Towns Association, and it is very impressive what the public thinks about how the county's operating. And I would encourage you to, I've already encouraged Ken to do this, but put that on a future agenda and get that update yourselves directly with the actual data. And it is available online, and I encourage you to look at it. So we also, in order to make sure that we were very inclusive, we also put a very similar survey out on not Facebook, but out online. And the reason we did that was to try to reach a whole different clientele, to see if there were younger people who weren't doing the mail-out survey and younger people who wanted to do things differently. And the mail-out survey could be answered electronically, just keep that clear. And it worked very well. We got 211 survey responses over 2.5 months. They actually was interesting because most of the responses were very, very similar. But we have both of those documents out on the same spot. So, on our website. So a couple other highlights. So we put in kind of a long report this year, and again, I really encourage you to read some of this because NG 911 is a project that we've been working with emergency dispatch on for about 3 years, I believe. And we finally, this spring in April, became the first county in the state to go live with NG 911. To accomplish that goal, community development staff, our GIS people, were very heavily involved. Even trying to explain it and retype it up here, I have to kind of read it because you have to clean up all the address data to what they call a 98% accuracy level. And it may seem like, well, everybody's accurate. No, it's actually not. And they found out that there's a lot of inaccuracies. And we have to, in order to make this work, we actually had to clean up data for the cities and villages also, not just the rural areas where we already monitor it, which is another reason why I surely hope you will. We already have been doing this for years in community development, and I just would mention that that ordinance that you'll be discussing in 2 months would really give us more backing, and we've been administering this since it was adopted more than 35 years ago because I stepped into it when I started working. But anyway, and it's always been on a cooperative level, and it's worked very well, but it does help to codify the rules. So NG 911, basically with the addresses being kept extremely accurate, allows 911 calls from virtually anywhere to be physically located very precisely by GPS and cell phone technology. And our newly hired last year GIS analyst was someone who had to step in, do the job, and I would just like to say that he did an amazing job, and his name is Doug Avales, and he just has really been just a tremendous hire, and we're really lucky to have him. It has to be maintained also, though, on a continuous, ongoing basis in order for it to continue to work. And I think Doug also made a comment to me that we were really breaking new ground in this county to be the first in the state to do it. We were carving it out, figuring out how to do it, working with the vendor, and that 98% accuracy was a challenge, a very challenging thing. So it doesn't end. There's a whole lot of work still to be done. They were able to pull it off, go live in April, but it takes the GIS staff to do it. And I'll just be honest, I've been told since last year that we're going to need another full-time GIS staff person to keep up with that work. So put it in your pockets. It's going to happen. Not maybe this year, but the following year, it's really going to be needed. So. These are a couple examples of the kind of parcel maintenance work that had to be done. Our staff, to get this 98% accuracy, they updated over 5,000 tax parcel polygons. So they had to map them over and improved over 1,100 subdivision plats in CSM. You can see the red lines are the ones that were wrong, and the green lines were the ones that were accurate and had to be fixed. And you can see there was a lot of problems. And up above, this picture shows you that the cleanup, so basically the way that the NG 911 works is that you have to have 3 points and triangulate it in order to accurately locate it. So all the address points have to be accurate in order to dispatch to the right location. And I'm way oversimplifying this, I'm sure. But the green lines, you can see how they crisscross and they make a mess and all that. In the above snapshot, crossed green lines and address points with no green lines are all problem areas. Only when they're straight with no crossings can you actually triangulate. So just think about that for a minute and try to wrap your head around it. Took me quite a while. So other than that, we continue to have a lot of activity going on in our land use division. Sanitaries were down, reflects what Beth was telling you, and so were some other things, but minor subdivisions were way up, and so we were consistent in our majors. I would say, too, that we seem to have more and more contentious situations, or maybe perhaps the word is complicated. they're not simple, and numbers don't always tell the whole story. If it's a complicated application and there's multiple permits that are needed or there's multiple issues with it, then that takes a great deal of time. And we work very long and very hard with the applicants to try to sort those out. So time is of the essence, and there's never enough of it for what we have going on. And I'll jump ahead a little bit more. I wanted to talk just briefly about groundwater and nitrates. So we've been doing this program for a few years now, and it's working very well. As of 2022, 13% of the county wells that were tested were greater than 10 milligrams per liter drinking water standard, which means they exceeded the nitrate standard. That translates to approximately 77% of wells tested measured greater than 2 milligrams per liter, which provides evidence based on everything we've been seeing that land use activities do influence water quality, and we're continuing to want to test and find that out and exactly what's happening. It's also important to note that our water screening clinics have been not just well received. As of 2022, we had 404, and this year we expect in 23 to top 500 people at them. But 189 residents have learned that the nitrate levels in their drinking water is not safe. It's over the safe drinking water level, and they have then had move forward with information to either do partial, whole house, or some type of reverse osmosis system to make it safe. So we feel like we've made an impact on 189 people, families in this county. We also do stream monitoring, some great information there. I would just point out these next two maps because we will be the first county in the state to have, and we have been doing this. We are the first county to start doing it, and we're going to be the first county in the state to get this far. But as of 2022, we have 20 years of data of all of our resource management activities, all the different types of practices that we have put on the land in these two different maps, mapped and documented, which the state is still talking about how can we map that and what kind of common program can we get out there for everybody, and we're just doing it. So again, trying to be leaders and take initiative. In our department, Tim Stieber and his staff are amazing at taking care of these kind of things, stepping up and just making this happen. One of the staff had a desire to finish this, and he just tackled it, got it, dived into it, and did it. And that would be Max Erickson. So with that, I'm going to get near the end. I'm not going to go over these details or any of this. I'm going to jump in and say that the business in St. Croix County, Logistics Recycling, that offers hazardous waste collection direct to businesses and farmers and residents, is making an impact. Our costs for household hazardous waste collection have gone down. They'll be reduced in this coming year's budget, and it's helping because citizens are becoming educated to go directly there. And I don't know that we'll ever stop offering the service, but I do know that it's making a difference, and that hopefully we can continue to afford to offer that once-a-year event. And I'm going to jump over this one. And again, I already mentioned that we feel that the park attendance was up again from 60 to 66,000 people, that our revenues stayed at over 400,000, and that we are seeing camping unit days staying steady and increasing. It went up a little bit in 2022, and again, that's pretty amazing considering we had 17 sites unavailable all last year because of the expansion. Here's a quick shot of our new boardwalk, a portion of it, and here's a couple good show. If you haven't been out there lately, the educational interpretive panels that we have put on the St. Croix River Crossing Loop Trail, they're very diverse in their information and their content, but they're a lot of fun, and they have a lot of interesting things on them, and I hope you all go out there and have a chance to look at them. Here's a great aerial photo of our new Vista Campground. See how it's laid out very well. And we also put up new kiosks and these exact same style, but a little bit smaller, of interpretive panels, only they'll be nature-based only, will be the ones on the boardwalks. So with that, here's a good picture of our Pay Here, our new mobile sign. And I would just say that for this year, things are going pretty well. There's a lot of projects underway. They're all getting done, and they're all moving along, and I'm sure that everything will continue to move forward. Oh, I did want to mention one thing. We also had an opportunity to purchase geo permits, and we have signed the contract and are moving forward with that. Was charged by our committee members to pursue an online permit, a cloud-based permitting system that would allow more access by the public to monitor the status, and we found a system that, a company that was affordable, did everything we wanted, and they are eager to be located in Wisconsin, and they're already in Minnesota and other states around us, and so they gave us a really great deal. So we get to be their guinea pig, but it should make an amazing difference. So with that, I believe that was, one more important thing. I know a lot of you, especially Mr. Otino, is a big fan of our Web Guide Extreme. And by the way, our Web Guide Extreme is going away. So don't fall bad, though, because it's being replaced by Beacon. The company got bought out, and the new mapping service should be really great. It should be as good or better, and it will be going live in about September. So we also have new oblique aerial photography that is now available this month, and will be available on Beacon. And we also have completed the quality control on the new LiDAR from 2021, and it is now coming available to the public this month in August. And with that, I'm done. Thank you so much for listening, giving me the chance to go out with a bang and have a little fun. Please consider submitting a photo for our annual photo contest. You can see we had some amazing ones. This one won, the cute, adorable foxes, and we let the public decide which picture gets on our annual park pass. But I do appreciate having had the opportunity to spend my career here in St. Croix County. I did not intend to. I was sure I was going to be gone in 3 years when I got hired, and it just sucked me right in. There was always more work to do. I could never even apply for a job. No, just kidding. But I did find that it was a very rewarding career. I appreciated the diversity. I appreciated the changing challenges, and I never got bored. And I really did love my job every single day of every year. Not all of it. Parts of it sucked. But overall, I loved it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. Does anybody have any questions before you run away? But thank you. It was a very comprehensive report. Thank you. All right, we're going to wrap this up. Request for future agenda items. Okay, seeing none, any county clerk's report or correspondence? Announcements? Okay, info discussion items. Is that new on the agenda? No, that shouldn't be. So that didn't look familiar. Okay, it is 8:24. We're adjourned.